Jetzt müsste losgehen. Bei mir ist jetzt nur.
Yeah. We've been building things fast. We've been building things fast, but not always deep. Too many projects on the clock, racing budgets on the wall. Decision made in 5 minutes, didn't read the cost at all. Heard Dataverse and flinch, saw a number close the door. Didn't see the years ahead of what that foundation's for. SharePoint holding up the ceiling with a prayer and duct tape. Looks fine till the weight comes down, then it's too late. You're saving pennies in the moment, paying dollars down the line. Architecture is a story, not a snapshot in time. It ain't just data in a table, it's how the future learns your name. You can't teach intelligence on a fragile frame. If you wanna build with vision, not just get it working now, you gotta choose the ground you stand on. When the questions come around, Copilot don't fly on guessing. It needs structure, it needs truth. If you want tomorrow, thinking with you, you gotta build on something deeper than cheap proof. Building in the room like, let me slow this down. Whiteboard full of lessons that the shortcuts never found. It's not about the license, it's the language underneath. Relationship security, semantics clean. Real life stories, not a vendor fairy tale, where one right choice let the whole roadmap scale. Hey, I don't improvise in chaos, it needs order to breathe. Dataverse gives meaning to the data you keep. This ain't theory, this is scars and receipts. You don't see the power till you ask the system why, and it answers with context, not a shrug and a sigh. If you wanna build with vision, not just patch another year, you gotta choose the ground you stand on. When the roadmap isn't clear, Copilot reads between the columns, sees relationships, not noise. That don't happen by accident, that's a deliberate choice. When is that a verse the right call? When scale starts whispering your name, when AI's more than a buzzword, when governance actually matters in the game. Not everything needs it, no, but some things truly do. And knowing the difference is the real breakthrough. This is strategy, not hype. This is long-term, not likes. You don't build intelligence on a platform built for files. If Copilot's in the future, then the present needs to align. Otherwise, you just asking smart questions of a system that's blind. So build with intention, let the architecture speak. Dataverse ain't the answer to everything, but it's the answer when depth's what you seek. If you want AI walking beside you, not guessing what you're meant to do, you don't start with cost alone, you start with what you're building toward and who it's for too. Build on something deeper. That's how the future listens.
So, Hello and a warm welcome from the cold world, Denmark. So welcome, Bülent, to our show today, to our workshop today. And I think it was a really nice song. I think it was a little bit of R&B and neo soul. And this is what we want to talk about today is a Data Wars one-on-one workshop. Bülent, the stage is yours. Warm welcome and have a nice workshop.
Thank you very much. The beat is really grooving, Marcel. You didn't exaggerate it about this one. I was just grooving all the time. I can tell you, I've never have that kind of a musical red carpet ever before. I need it in my company as well. I tell you. So,
You will get
welcome.
it from us.
Hello
So,
from Bremen. Oh, Sandra, nice. Okay, let me share my screen with you. And let me see which one of my screens I want to share with you. This one. Awesome. So hopefully you can see the Dataverse one-to-one workshop. And welcome everyone. So this will be a very interactive session. That means you can not only ask questions, you can also participate in some kind of polls. And that's why we do have a QR code that you can scan, but you can also, go in by the website, which is called AHA Slides, where I've just uploaded everything, and ahaslides.com/Dataverse1. So very easy just to remember. And when you just go in, then you have the presentation in front of you also live as well. So that's also helpful, because then it's easier to all the links which also been in the presentation that you can access there as well. So in that case, thank you very much for providing the link in the chat as well. I think that will be very helpful for everyone who's not using the QR code. So, but if you're using, just grab your smartphone and then let's go, I would say. In that case, so what is expected for today? So today we do have a full packed agenda. So first of all, we will have a small introduction, who I am, what we will do, why we're doing that with Dataverse today. So a little kind of warm up, but also the environment setup. So I want that everyone has a chance to train. If you have an own Dataverse environment, that's fantastic. Then you're already prepared for this one. So you don't need anything else. You only need a training environment, or maybe even your production environment, which I would not really recommend. But if there's not really another chance how to do this, be my guest. Then we will go through the typical ones. So we're building step by step. What is a data model in general? What is Dataverse? So then we understanding a little bit more about the data types. We're just learning about tables. We're learning more about columns. We're learning more about relationships, views, and forms. So we're really doing the basics in that case. And when we're just doing the basics, we will also dive from one point to another into the agentic part of that. So how you can leverage Copilot to make your life a little bit easier in that case. We will also deal a little bit, after we have finished the UI configurations chapter, a bit with security. Security is something I could talk 2 or 3 days minimum about security, which is tremendous for a success in the project. But obviously, in today's 4 hours, it will not be enough. So we will give you a really cool animated way of how you can understand how security works in Dataverse. And last but not least, we really deep diving into the most important questions. So I want to use it with AI, with Copilot. So what is the strengths of Dataverse there? And also one of my favorite topics ever is Dataverse versus SharePoint. So why is Dataverse a better option? And when sometimes is SharePoint a better option? So, and at the end, there will be an open discussion. So if there's any kind of questions which are open, not answered, then I'm here to answer that kind of questions. So I would say enough talk. Let's deep dive. So before we start, a little bit about me. I've just chosen this picture because I think whoever was a photograph during the Power Conference in Prague in December last year, she did a very, very job. I have never seen such a nice picture. Usually I'm using my typical when I'm on Hawaii and with, a tuxedo And that's usually what I'm just using as a picture because it's just beautiful there. I still remember the good times in Hawaii, and that's why I'm also saying aloha, because I'm really stunned about this magical place. I can recommend to everyone, this island exists, and even you have maybe not good reasons to go to the USA for. I'm not going too much into the political stuff, but I can really recommend to visit that beautiful island. I'm working in Evanade, a really nice company. I'm really happy. I'm completely orange, as you can say. Since 15 years, I just hit my 15 years mark this month in this company, and I'm really happy because I have not only met wonderful colleagues there, but also have learned a lot in the project and all the opportunities which have been given to me. One of the opportunities have given to me as well is that I became also an MCT, so a Microsoft certified trainer in 2021. So I'm also very grateful for everyone who just pushed me into this, but also at the end, there was a great people at Evanade, mostly MVPs, who just pushed me into the Microsoft Most Valuable Professional program as well. So I'm also a 1 year MVP as well. So now in my sophomore, so it means in my second year, and every time very willing to learn about everything about technology. And Copilot has a lot of technology to offer, and that's something we will deep dive today. But before I start, I see we have only 3 people. So with 3 people, it might be a little bit not so many answers in there. How familiar are you with Dataverse? Are you a beginner? Are you intermediate? Or are you an expert? So usually this is a 101 club here. So that means we will really do the basics today. But that shall not really prevent us to answer also a little bit more difficult questions if there's any. That's why we also have the open discussions at the end. So be with us. So in that case, so I'm just giving the chance because I see some people are now logging in and just want at the end just give some answers. So we do have 2 beginners. I know it's very difficult to choose between beginner, intermediate, and expert. So beginner, obviously, you haven't really touched with the technology or you're just really new to this. Intermediate, you have worked a little bit, and expert would be, you could be solution architect for that. So as we see 2, in that case, let me just go to the next question. And the next question is, here you can really express what you're expecting, from this training. So what do you want to learn today? What's your expectation? So what are the key outcomes you really would like to get out of this training? So in that case, I give you a couple of seconds time. You just answer something. And based on that, let's see what will come. So the first one's a typing. That's great. Let me see. I'm really curious about the very first answer I'm just getting. And also great to see the interactions in the chat as well. Inspire, learn. Okay. Short, crisp, but good. You will learn today, definitely something. I'm very sure that the one or other will see something, learn and understand the basics, fundamentals of Dataverse. That's exactly what we're dealing here today. Did better Power Apps. Yeah. All right, good. I think we already have some kind of good answers here. So thank you very much for all your typings, all your inspiration in that. So I would say enough talk. Last links before we really deep dive into this is we have 2 breaks planned. So one is between 15:15 and 15:30 Central European time. So if you're from UK or from Portugal, for example, then it's a little bit earlier. We also have a 15-minute break then later at 16:30 and between 16:30 and 16:45. Breaks are important, so you can reset some kind of, if you have snow outside, you can just go out and maybe, you're getting too much heated up by this training. You can just go and make the snow angel there and come down, cooled back again here, and we can just continue. So we have the character limitation in the field, so could not update more. So yeah, Character limitation. When we're just talking about this one, then obviously we can just have that kind of questions. You can ask any kind of questions, and I have the great guys from the M65 con here who just, pointing me out to that kind of questions. So, but enough talk. Let's start with a warm up with introduction to Dataverse. So when we're talking about Dataverse, and one of the things which people mistakenly saying is it's a database. Well, it's not really a database. It's really a sweet suite of options for you. And managing data is one thing, but what you have built in automatically is also you have a lot of security features there as well, which you built in. So you just can really authorize, authenticate people who can really have access to it, yes or no, and by a lot of options. Then you have also built a lot of logic into it. It's just not only, that's the text field, you're just entering something in and the information's been, stored. There's a lot of logic you can just use, that can be plugins, that can be business rules, there can be other things as well. There's partly also technology in which are not really state of the art today because, we have other tooling for that. For example, if you want to do that kind of automation, maybe you're just using technologies like PowerAutomate because it's much mightier as the built-in workflows. But the built-in workflows can also, do their job as well if they've been used good and correctly. And it's still something where people are speculating. Well, this should be retired, right? In the upcoming years, and we hear that since years, and workflows still exist here, for example. The data modeling is very easy in Dataverse, and that will be also part of that course here today, that you learn how easy it is to model the data. It has also reporting capabilities where I would say it is very basic. Yes, if there's no budget in the project, then obviously that's the way to go. But for reporting tools, there are much better tooling out there, which I would recommend, like Power BI, for example. Then storage is also there a lot. No, not so much on storage, but enough for the beginning. So where you can really build up, your own business out of that, in Dataverse. And last but not least, the integration, especially in the Microsoft 365 stack, is really fantastic. Everything with interacting, what Microsoft just brought out, interaction is really, really good. It can be DevOps, it can be GitHub, it can be any kind of Microsoft 365, like Word, like Excel, like PowerPoint. The integration is one of the biggest strengths in the Microsoft ecosystem, and that's also where Dataverse plays its strengths there as well. Here I have now a conceptual diagram which I like. It's from 2023. It's my good colleague Danny Cahill. He's from Australia. I had a pleasure with him to meet him last year in Vancouver during a nice walk, and boy, he can walk. That should have been only a, let's say, 5-kilometer walk, but he just dragged me into 10 or 15 or more. My feet were really hurting after this. Thank you very much, Danny, for that. Danny is providing a lot of really cool content regarding business applications, Power Apps, but also Dataverse as well. This diagram is a bit outdated because you still see the kind of wording PowerBros agent, which is today Copilot Studio. But this is a really good overview about what you can just do and where in the Power Platform Dataverse has its place. In Dataverse, obviously with tables, and then with columns and relationships, forms, lists, which are also branded as views as well, security, business logic. And you can see then in that case where especially with lists and forms, that goes more into the UI direction with Power Apps and Power Pages. You connect to data, which is good for Power BI reports, but also Copilot Studio also don't need a UI for this, so you can connect the database there as well. And these are a lot of cool things that one of the diagrams to explain, on one slide to everyone what Dataverse is really capable of. We will see that partly today, and in that case, let's now jump into our first lab for today. Our first lab is the environment setup. So that shall be a very interactive training. That means everyone shall have the chance to work on that. So we have now a repository. When you go to the repository and you click on that link, obviously for the ones who don't have access to the slide, I just opened this one now in my additional browser tab here in that case. So then you see that I have just created, for that training, Dataverse beginner workshop. So in that case, you see that this is, not only featured by M65 core convention here. This is in that case also, that workshop has been here from the beginning. When I just talked with the guy, it was absolutely clear that we have this workshop here, and I'm really grateful for having the chance, to work with these guys here. In that case, in that 4 hours, you will learn, a lot of these things, which we just go step by step through this. And there's also a roadmap, but there's also, in that case, a lab folder. And that lab folder includes 8 labs, which we want to do today. There's also a bonus lab at the end, the why Dataverse versus SharePoint at the end. But this is something I have already calculated from the time I think we might have the time to do this. That's why I have also prepared some kind of PowerPoint slides for that. So in that case, the environment setup is today's first lab we just want to do. In that case, how we want to do this is pretty simple. So I will, first of all, let you do the lab. And then a bit later, so 2-3 minutes later, then I will come and demo this. So I will give everyone then the chance just to do this there. So what is important is, first step is you just create your own clean browser environment for that. So that's very important. Majority, I think, will use Microsoft Edge. That's mostly connected to your work account if you're using a work laptop. And that might interfere if you don't want to use Dataverse in your work account. If you want to have a dedicated training environment, then obviously just do and follow the steps in part 1. In part 2, then you're obtaining your training license. So there are 2 ways how to do this. Number 1, which is the preferred option, is create your own so-called Power Apps developer plan. With that Power Apps developer plan, you are able to get your own dedicated environment if you're not blocked by your IT. If you're blocked by your IT, then, well, that happens. I've seen that several times. Last year during the Microsoft tour in Frankfurt, I've seen a few people have been blocked by the company, by the governance, so they couldn't do it. But if you can do it, obviously it's great. You're just getting enough capacity, especially for this training, but also build, your own Dataverse model where you can later build on your own Power App, for example, as well, or some kind of automation with Power Automate as well. And if that doesn't work for you, then I'm prepared as well. So in that case, that's only the option for if you want to do the training, but there's nothing else possible for you to create. I've created 24 accounts in that case. So if you just go in here, so then you will see that you do have 24 accounts. Do me a favor, don't delete the naming in that case. What you do is, if you just go to this, just put your name into the bracket, so everyone just knows that is now taken by that specific person. So then that's easier that, not 2 people are just getting this one, So I would say that's also a way. If there's not so many people today there, maybe then we can just, save you some time and you just take this one. But this is only available for this day to day, or this week. But after this, then I will just, shut down the environment. So if you want to work longer, so in that case, it's then better if you just take the other one. So in that case, let me go in here, and I give you 2 minutes now time that you just go step by step to this. If you have any kind of questions, please let us know in the chat. So there is not really so much to demo today in that lab, but in the upcoming labs, of course. And by the way, if you're just asking what your password is for this one, for the environments, workshop 2026. So if you just take this one, then you do get your access to it. If you get your access to it, be sure you're also selecting the right environment, but I come to this a bit later. Good. So, how many people have created their own environments, and how many people or have their own environments already, and how many people are just taking the labs here? So, as I can see, no names here. So usually that happens in lifetime. I assume that no one is just really taking this account in that case. So, good. Then everyone, I assume, has his or her own account in that case. That's great. Alrighty, good. I would say let's go now with the next one. And now we really starting now into our training. And our training is about the data model and solutions. Well, if you have heard about the concept of solution, that's great, but maybe there's the one other thing you just don't know about, or maybe you haven't heard about this one. So, well, you have an environment, so your clients just comes and wants, work with that. So it's typically the production environment where people are working with that. But if they want to work, obviously you can't develop at the same time. I hope I never will see again that someone is really doing live development on a production environment anymore, because I've seen that so many times in my life. And I can tell you that never ended good, never. So even doing live fixes on a production is not really something I would really recommend, because it doesn't make any sense. So just imagine you do have a company with 500 people, and let's say they're committed and they want to work with a solution with a Power App, for example, you just have provided. And Dataverse is, the way working, backbone of that. But if you find any kind of a mistake, an error, and you want to fix it, or maybe you just want to extend that with new features, you just can't do that in a production environment. Because then what you're doing is, especially if you're just trying to find out a mistake which is not clear, then you just try to debug. And based on that, you're slowing down, or even you stop processes on a production environment. People can't work anymore. That's super if you want to destroy a lot of revenues on one day on client side, but obviously that's not what we want. We want reliability there. We want to be a trustful partner. Obviously, we don't do this. So we need at least a second environment. Perfectly, you do have this typical strategic three environments: a so-called development environment, a so-called test environment, and a so-called production environment. And you need to, obviously, in a development environment, you just develop what the client is asking you for. In a test environment, you're just testing together with the client, because a client can't test on a development environment, because that's your own environment where, and while the client is testing, you never know when the client has time to test. You still continue with a workload from Jira or Confluence or DevOps or whatever you're just using, your backlog. Based on that, obviously on dev, no one should test, only on test. Why we do have a test environment? Because before we really go into the production, someone have to, from the client side, to give a thumbs up and say, yes, now it's good, now we can really deploy this to production. And that kind of deployment mostly happening automatically today with pipelines in Power Platform. But before we come to this, we need something, a technology, how we can transport this kind of so-called components which we're developing. And that's what is called solutions. And that ALM here stands for Application Lifecycle Management. That means if you automate these things, that at the end it's just only a click where all that kind of things been exported from a development environment into a test environment, or exported out from a test environment to a production environment, at the end. So that is usually the cycle, how it at the end goes. So in that case, that's what LMS and that's what solutions are for. Solution can contain a lot of so-called components. That can be tables, columns, forms, views, apps, but it can also be Power Automate flows. It can also be now Copilot Studio agents, for example. It can be environment variables. It can be a lot. A lot of these components, also called artifacts, can be transported now with solutions. And that's why the solutioning concept is really nice. And that's why Dataverse is becoming more and more important, not only in the Power Platform, but also, with Copilot Studio, which is still, some kind of Power Platform, where I don't see that necessarily only Power Platform only, because it can be used, from everyone. But that's a different topic. And what's very important is that solutions do only contain metadata and not really business data. And that's one of the huge mistakes, clients are doing when we have a workshop. There's never a way of how you transport, millions of the records in one single solution. That's not really doing it, So someone just asking for the password. The password is workshop 2026. So Mirko, if you just write that down, I think that I would be helpful. Good. So in that case, the very, very important, you're really not using any kind of business data there in your solutions. It's really about how your table has been built, how your columns have been, in the tables, how they've been arranged somewhere in forms and views. Not WhatsApp 2026. That will be also a cool workshop 2026 is the password. All right. Well, and there are this eternal battle between managed and unmanaged solutions. I don't know if you have heard of that. So here are the pros and the cons for unmanaged solutions. So unmanaged solutions were a long time a really good way to work with, So for example, you had a lot of freedom in your development in that case. So you're not really bothered by anything. You can develop, you are not blocked by anything. That's really great. So you can create, you can modify, you can delete components without any problems. You also have the ease of desegmentation. So if you, for example, need to merge, multiple small features into a single large solution, unmanaged solutions not really giving you a pain there. That was always easy, to do. And obviously, you also have no deployment overhead in development for that as well, because there is no layering logic to calculate. I'll come to this a little bit later when we have the next slide with the managed solutions. What you have is a problem if you're using unmanaged solutions is a permanent environment pollution. So what I mean by this, so if you're deploying something into a production environment, it's permanently there. And if you just find out that there is some kind of a mistake, you just can't roll back easily. You can't, because it is more or less in one layer. So there's not multiple layers like you just have with managed solutions. So you just can't roll that back easy. And that also blocks you from future updates as well. So what do you mean by this? So any unmanaged change imported into the environment is been on a top layer, so on the active layer. So anything what you now import with a managed solution will never override something which you just imported as an unmanaged solution. That means in that case, you have a real problem with that. So in that case, either you stay completely on managed solutions or you decide to go completely with unmanaged solutions, but don't make a mix because the unmanaged solution will always win in that case. And last but not least, managed solutions is something where Microsoft is just doing a lot of, I don't want to say pressure, but a lot of convincing talk, let's say it like this, where they say, go with a managed solution, you will be much, much happier. So what is definitely a huge advantage is you do have a clean uninstall and data integrity. That means in that case that when you have something rolled out, but you just need to roll it back, you can just do it easily by just uninstalling and that's it. And the good thing is you can't change it there. You can't change something which you have imported with a managed solution. It's locked. That's why we call it also the lock effect as well. So if people trying to change something or look into it, it will not work for them. And you have also the chance of a sophisticated versioning and patching there. So for example, if something is not working out of box, you can have a small solution as a patch fix. And then in that case, then it's some kind of documented there as well. That never works with unmanaged solutions. But, and that's where we have run, especially in my early years, when we have managed solutions to use the very first time, into the dependency hell risk in that case. So the problem is that if you have multiple managed solutions and they are depending or reference to each other, then you can't just uninstall if a dependency is there. It doesn't allow you. And that's some kind of an issue. So especially if there are more dependencies there. So you always have just to look that you just try to avoid the dependencies as much as possible. Sometimes not possible, but that's where everything's been built up, so you can't just uninstall that. There's also an increased troubleshooting latency, and especially with the layering complexity, you have many layers. They are on read only, and if you just come and say, okay, I just want to do a small fix, in production because nothing is works, and going the LML cycle would take too much time, then obviously that would not be really working out. So in that case, that's also some kind of challenging you. So if someone is just asking me today, I would say go with managed solutions instead of unmanaged solutions because the advantages are bigger today as with managed solutions. But if you just ask, solution architects, you will always get one who say go with managed solutions and the other one say go with unmanaged solutions. Now let's go and come to our tables. So with our tables today, and that's the first lab, we're also now going into it. In that case is we want to create today a table country. And we can not only create our own tables, we can create 4 kinds of tables. So that the standard tables, which we will today create, you have also activity tables. Activity tables are everything related to any kind of time management. So that means if you have a due date, for example, that can be an appointment. And the workshop is everything in not any kind of capital letter there. Everything been, in small letter, please. And in that case, in country, in columns and rows. So when we're just writing that down, so Germany, France, Italy, if you want to create this one, so it's easy. So the activities, activity tables are appointments, for example, with any kind where you just have the due date in. That can also be a task, for example, or anything else. So these are activity tables. And then you do have as well so-called virtual tables. With virtual tables, you have the chance not only to have the data in Dataverse, but somewhere else, and you just have a connector to that other data that can be anywhere else. It can be, for example, in any ERP system, in SAP, for example, that can be in any other system where you have a connector and you can display that information. And you do have so-called elastic tables as well. I haven't really played with that, but the concept is very interesting because if people are creating tables, sometimes they're just creating it for a purpose and then it's been never used again, and the table exists as a dead corpse in your database, which shouldn't be the case. So in that case, you're just using that more or less. You can use elastic tables in there. So elastic tables have a due date, and once a due date has been passed, then this table is destroying it in itself. Some kind of, remember maybe Mission Impossible, you're just getting a message, and every time it says this message is destroying in 10 seconds on its own, yeah, sure. So that's kind of elastic tables. It's really destroying, and every data has been entered there will automatically be destroyed there as well. Good. All right. So as I see, we do have the fun with the with a password all the time. Let me just go back and write down. So workshop 2026. It's not WhatsApp 2026. I'm not paid by Meta, unfortunately. That would be great. If they hear anyone from Meta, I'm raising my hand. Workshop, please, also not with any kind of capital letter. And I think it should work. All right, good. Coming back to now our labs. And now this is something which we just going and playing a little bit around. So in that case, let me just go right click and go into lab 2. In lab 2, there will be three things you will learn. First of all, you will just create your own solution, and you will also create your own publisher, with a prefix where you're defining yourself, especially if you're just working with multiple companies there. So then this is a great idea that this been, divided or separated into some kind of prefixes and publishers. And last but not least, we will create the country table. So this is a step-by-step guide. Just go with it. I give you 2 minutes time. And after this 2 minutes, then I will just go in and start building that in front of you. I have no idea why it's not working for you. If anyone else has similar things, then please let me know. I don't know which one you have taken, so let me see. So maybe you just take another account. Maybe if you just entered a password several times wrong, then maybe you've been blocked. I would recommend then in that case, just you taking another one, Tamil. Good. All right. Good. Then I would say let's dive into it and let's see. So first of all, very important is select your right environment. So I've created a lot of these names here, and Adele, Alex, whoever. So if you just take one of that account, then please just take also the right according environment for you. That ensures that no one else has been coming there and no one else is interfering with your work in that case. So I've just taken Bianca's Pisani's environment because that's the only free environment which has been left in that case. And then the other ones can be taken then by the others. Even currently, we don't have so many people there. So what we're just doing is, I've been already here. Now, the first thing is, I want to create now a new solution in that case. So my new solution looks like this. Yeah, I go here on the left side on solutions. So you usually start with make.powerapps.com in that case. That's always, where you land there. And then you just go with solutions in that case. If you just go in solutions, you will see already separated between managed solutions and unmanaged. Unmanaged solutions and managed solutions. So if you click on all, then you will see then everything else. So let me see, try to load. That's fascinating. Okay, let me see. Let me just try this again. If it doesn't work with this one for whatever reason, let me do then the following. Let me try. I'm just taking this one, Adele's. Let me see. Let me just reload this one. Good to see that my account is not working as expected. No problem. I'm just taking now any kind of other ones here in that case. So let me just go in and log me out here and log me in again. Here we go. And let me just make the pipes.com. And then I'm just taking another account in this case. So let me take Adele, the first one. As I don't believe that it's been taken. No, then let me just take this one in that case. Here we go. And then I can just take Adele's account in that case. So here we go. No, what's going on? Then let me see. Let me use another one then in that case. Let me use the last one. That's interesting. All right, let me see. No problem. We have always solution to that. So in that case, let me see. And I do have here as well something great. So let me just take this. I can take this one. That also should work. All right, good. Make.pipes.com. Then I'm just getting a lot of ideas who I want to log in. Here we go. All right, good. Yeah, I know why it's not working. I just found out. Okay, that's on me. Yeah. Give me some time. I think it will also work here now as well. So give me a try. And now I'm sure it also works with Adele as well. Give me here a chance. I just forgot something. Yeah. Exclamation mark. That's what I forgot. That's on me. So let me just go in back here and go this one here. Yep. So here we go. Now it works. So this is a real password. I'm sorry for any users. That exclamation mark I just missed there. But now we have solved that. Great. All right, so now we are in. I'm in now as Adele, and now it should work. In that case, here we go. So if I go now to solutions, now I can finally see the beauty of it. So as a common data services, as unmanaged and managed, now everything is working. Fantastic. That's what I wanted. Now I'm creating a new solution. If I'm creating a new solution, I just go on new solution. And this is what you just type in. So that can be anything. I'm just typing in, it's my name now in that case, underscore demo. You can just type anything else what you want. And now I want to select a publisher, and I'm seeing now that the publisher is not there. So in that case, I just need to create my own publisher if I don't want to use the default one, because the default one is CDS, which stands for a Common Data System, Water System, Common Data System. I think so. A very old name, over 6 years. I already mostly forgot about that one, but in the metadata you still see everything. Common Data Solution was it, by the way, not system. Common Data Solution, and you have the default publisher then there. So in that case, I want to create a new one. You just go then to new publisher in that case. So in the new publisher, I'm just typing in my name in that case, so that's the easiest one to do. And obviously you need to do this here as well and make it short. And so I can every time see an object. That's great if you only have one environment, but you want to train with someone. So then based on what they've created, you see automatically by the name who it is. Other recommendations is you just using the client's company name, as a prefix there. Then it's also then easy to say, or you just put in your company's prefix. That's also okay. So now I've saved this one, and automatically you see now has been just taken. So there are many ways to go. You can set this as your preferred solution for that training. That would be absolutely okay. So because everything what you're just creating out of the solution will be automatically added into your solution. This is great, especially with Copilot, because then some people are just creating things and you just want to have some kind of control. So you can set a preferred solution. Unfortunately, there is not a setting of several preferred solution, like if this condition been fulfilled, go into that solution, and if another condition is been fulfilled, use another solution. Doesn't work. So if I just go in here, there's nothing else which we can do. Only the interesting part is it's unmanaged. Everything what you're just creating the very first time is unmanaged, of course, because otherwise you can't use it anymore, because it would be locked. So now see if I click on create, how the new solution has been created. And let me just also quickly go out of that solution again. I have just created this one. So it is beautifully, because it's empty, nothing in there, as you can see. So if I just go back, you see now in my unmanaged one, this is now my preferred solution. So everything what I'm now creating will go directly into this. Last but not least, let me just now create the table country. So there are several ways to go. So if you are here, the first thing you just need to know is if you're in the alt stack, you will see a lot of these things here. So you can create an agent, an app, an automation, a dashboard, a classic one, but also the Power BI related one. You can create a classic report. You can create everything what has to do with security, your tables, what is our our thing what we want to do, and also a lot of other things as well. You see, there's a lot of things you can just do, and put in as a component into your solution. So now let's go to tables, and there are three things. Tables, that is where you can do the Copilot magic, then tables with advanced properties, and virtual tables. So today we're just interested only in that two ones here, not into virtual tables. So let me just click on this, and you're coming automatically to a new interface, which only more or less exists in the beginning, unfortunately, because this is where you have your entity relationship diagram, which is super great if you're building, some kind of a complex model in there, and you can see it and visualize it. Unfortunately, there is nothing from Microsoft out of the box that you can use that, except you just going in and put in your existing tables. Maybe you just want to load something. There are two solutions for that. One solution is the Plan Designer from Microsoft. The other solution is from my really esteemed colleague, Alan De Castro, who's also, by the way, working with me in the same company, the Evanate, but has created a fantastic entity relationship diagram viewer with Copilot features there. If you're interested, I put you and shoot you the link then here anytime. So what we want to do is, obviously, we want to start with Copilot. So if I go in there, then you have the chance either to describe in your own words what you want, but I just want to make it very easy. I just want only to create the table. So in that case, I'm just taking now from the lab, create a table for countries. I need a primary column for country name. Also add sample data for 5 major countries, including their names. And if I click now on generate, it works. I don't know if all MVPs are working at every need, but a few definitely. Good. So now you do have now your country table here. You don't see much, right? You only see one column, which I will explain in a second what it is. So it just asks you on the right side, are you happy with this one? You can anytime undo it. So if you go now and click here directly and click on the view data, you see it has now created 5 examples: USA, China, India, Brazil, Germany. So I have put in add 5 sample data because Dataverse always, summarize or give me examples for 5, not more. If you just put in 10 or 20, I never have seen much more results. There seems to be a limit there with 5. What is also important for you to know is that you don't see any kind of a greenish Dataverse sign here. That means that table hasn't been created yet. It doesn't exist physically there. So if you want to have much more columns, you can do. If you want to have much more data, you can do. Add me more countries to the country table. If you do something like this, if Copilot is your friend of the day, it will automatically add you now much more data than there. So in that case, only have me added 3: France, Japan, Canada in that case. So good. Now I do have 2 examples. Let me add me 2 more countries. At the end, I want to have 10. So he added me now Mexico and Italy as well. All right, good. Now I do have 10 examples. Now I could now modeling and say, give me more names, more columns and so on, but that's the next chapter in that case. That's why I don't want to do it for now. What I want to do is now I just saving this one here. So I'm happy. If I'm happy with this, I'm saving. I can go in and I can have much more properties. Then I see countries, the primary column name is not changeable here. It would be changeable if you would create that on your own. The schema name is country. That's more or less all what you have. So, and later, if you just connect this one with much more tables in the chapter relationship, for example, with continents, then obviously then it becomes more and more good and visible. Let me just save this one. It just ask me, are you sure? Now, this will be taken serious, and I'm just creating this table for you in that case. And once done, you do have your first table created with Copilot. So, babadoom. So sometimes it takes a while. And here we go. We do have now our country table. You see? And if I just go into the country table, then you will obviously see only the names. But you will also see a lot of other information which can be a little bit confusing. So what is important for you just to know, you don't only create a country name. The system is always in Dataverse creating a table with a lot of other metadata as well. One of the important one is it creates you a 36-digit GUID there. This is every time the same and can't be avoided. So this is when you're using that on the next step with PowerBros plugins, for example, or PowerAutomate, you just need that kind of a connection, an ID to connect at the end programmatically. You see that it's been created by Adele Vance, when it's been created, and you see also further other information there as well. But nothing interesting so far. The only interesting part has been only the name, the table which we created, and all the countries we've been putting in here. So good so far. And let me just jump into the next lab. Here we go. And let me just go in here and go back now to the next one. And the next one here is columns. So now we have created our table country, very easy. And now obviously, if you're only happy with a country name, well, you can do this like this, but obviously maybe you just want to have a little bit more information there. You can have a description about the country example. Yeah, we can also let Copilot generate what Copilot believes is very important about that country as well. We can put in the population there as well, and also to which continent it belongs. But many other things as well. You can have the ISO 3 indication there. For example, for Germany it would be GER, for example. And for France, it would be then FRA, for example. And that kind of depends on really of the client requirements. Is sometimes needed just to put all that information in there. So now let's have the next lab there. And the next lab is pretty simple. You just go in and click, and then you just come to the third lab in that case. So let me just do this as well. And then you do have your data types and columns in that case. So, and let's do this lab now in that case. Here we go. If I'm now here in country, I just want now to create my first columns. And there are some ways how to do this. So you can use Copilot a little bit to this, but let's do this the old-fashioned way, how to just do this. So there is something which is called columns in that case. If I click on this one, you see a lot of these fields or columns called by Microsoft. And this is a primary name column. This is where we have our information then there. So like Germany, Italy, France, whatever, India, whatever. So, and then now we just want now to create a new schema name in that case. So how can we do this? So if I just go in here on top, I can just click on new column, and I'm just getting now a new screen where I'm just putting all that information in there. So one of the information I just want to put in is description. I just want to describe how nice it is or what is special about the country you're just living. So let me just put description then there. And now the data types. This is very, very important. Which one we will select. In the very first beginning, if you're completely new to this, I would say just go with strings first, because strings are very easy to handle. But you have much more options. You don't only have strings, which is here named text, by the way. So you do have a plain text. You can have, this is simply where you just write something down. That's a single line, more or less. Then you have a text area. So you have much more space if you want to put in an essay there, for example. Or maybe you just also want to make, everything what you're just writing, in bold or with, other colors or other fonts and so on. Then you're using rich text. And this is HTML, what you're using. So with HTML, you can just, let your text show a little bit differently, in that case. It can be an email field. So it's just checking if, there's @ sign in, and if there's a dot and .com, for example, .de, .uk, whatever. And you can also check if it's a phone number as well, or an URL. And you can also use it with multiple lines of text as well, and that thing with a plain text enriched as well, not only single. Good. I'm just taking text and let the rest, leave it like it is at the moment. So you don't need much more information. So the only thing is, what is interesting for you if you're in that solution, you can check by advanced options if you still have your own schema name there. Good. You save this one, and you do have your character amount, and that's 100. You can every time extend, the character number, but you don't have the chance to decrease it later once it's been extended. Especially if data has been written and you just say, no, decrease this one. I'm not sure if that's possible, but I know in my early times when I used Dataverse, it wasn't possible, and also not good because then it cuts everything, and I feel I've used much more information. For example, I've written down, oh, that's a fantastic place just to live. It's very snowy. Sometimes you have the feeling of I don't know what, some kind. So more is 100. And if you just short that down, obviously, it doesn't make sense. So let me click on save. And boom, here we go. Now I do have descriptions. So what you can also do is you can also sort this now by this one. And especially, this is also a good practice as well. If you're using an A as a prefix, or Z as a prefix, then you can sort this one and you see everything what you have much faster. So in that case, you see everything what I have been created so far, because everything else what comes out of the box don't have a prefix. They always without any prefix. That's also for you something which you should know as well. So I do have my description. Now I just create now something new, which is now the population column. And the population column in that case is obviously not a text field. So it's obviously, oops. Now I just make copy and paste there. No. We are a bit stubborn today, huh? Here we go, population. And in that case, you do have now, obviously, you can also use text, but maybe you want to do some kind of calculations later. Obviously, you're just taking a number. And also with numbers, you do have several options. It can be whole number, it can be decimal, float, and whatever else. Obviously, I'm taking a whole number because usually a human being is not cut into two pieces. I hope not. So that means it's always a whole thing, a whole number. In that case, you can have some kind of formatting if you want, if you put in, but at the moment, duration, language code, time zone does not really fit. So I leave it on none. And as well, check here, everything what is within your solution will always get your prefix in there. So what you can also do is, if needed, you can also, well, if it's population, obviously, you can just start with 0 because there will be never a minus number then there, obviously. And if you just do that kind of things, obviously, then people can't enter then another number. It's not really stated in the lab, but that's, usually if you just go through it, then obviously do that. I keep it like this at the moment. I click on save, and then I do have now my population there as well. That's it for now. So let me just go in and check now. So you don't see that reflected now here. And currently that looks a little bit like overwhelming. So how can I make it nicer? So we do have our views later, and with views, we're just creating something which you can use later, for example, in the Power App. But what we also have is we have the chance already on Dataverse level to have at least a much more eye-friendly list for you. So in that case, if I click on 15 more, that I can deselect everything, and I'm only selecting the ones which are important for me. So that could be country name, and that would be description, and that would be population. The rest currently does not really do this. So save this one. Here we go. How can I fill with Copilot suggestions? I come to this in the next chapter with relationships. Then I can show that to you, Sandra. So, because if you're using Copilot or Gemini or any kind of AI searching tool for you or large language model for you, unfortunately, there's no way of how you can just do this automatically. They have been for a short amount of time. If you just clicked on edit here, then it just opens you that in a full screen. There was some kind of Copilot here on the left side, I remember. But it's been deprecated. It's not there anymore. So the other way how you can just do this is been described in the other chapter, relationships. But it doesn't make sense that I'm starting now with relationships. So in that case, I can show you quickly how it works. So the easiest way of really how still to use the power of that is you just go in here and now you say, I want to create me a new table. You come back where Copilot is there, but instead of describing, you just click on existing table. And now you just enter now country. Here we go. So now you see also that it's been physically now in Dataverse. That's why you see this sign. If you click now on country name and on view data, you don't see at the moment what has been reflected. I can now just add now what I tried previously. So like this. Here we go. Population. So currently it's empty. So now you do have your Copilot on the right side. So usually you can now say, add me some from that missing part and add me. For example, I do have Brazil in my country list. Can you add a description? What makes this country special? And a population number into the Brazil row. Let's see if that works. So, and that's what I'm getting as a message. I'm not able to help you with that one. It doesn't understand me. But in the next chapter with relationship, when we just starting, when we creating a new table, and instead of that we click on the save and exit, but we just doing it on one level, then it works. Then it just creates you the data. Unfortunately, it does not create in that state. I haven't found any way of how you can leverage Copilot. Otherwise, I'm missing it, to be very honest. But maybe that's something we just give back to Microsoft as feedback, but this is needed. Anyhow, I look at my clock. We have 15:14. It doesn't make sense just to start with a relationship chapter now. So I suggest that we have a 15-minute break. And during that 15-minute break, we come back again. That gives you the chance, if you're a little bit behind your labs, that you can just do the labs on your own. And then we see each other and we're continuing with the relationship labs. In that case, see you in 15 minutes.
Welcome to PowerBros Knowledge, where Power Platform meets pure innovation. Your business runs on chaos. Approvals lost, data scattered, time wasted. We know that pain. Now imagine automating everything, faster, smarter, and built for impact. That's where PowerBros come in, architects of digital change. We don't talk trends, we build results. Our Knowledge Hub turns expertise into action, real tutorials, real automation, real impact. Whether it's Power Apps, Automate, Logic Apps, or Entra, we make it work together, smarter. Join the PowerBros movement, 30,000 professionals learning, building, and sharing every day. Ready to transform your workflows? Book us now, and let's build something legendary together.
Hi, I'm Sean, and I train people to become Power Platform Solutions Architects. If you're watching this, you know Power Platform, but be honest, when you're building a solution, are you using the best tools to solve the problem or just the tools you know? If you love building powerful, scalable solutions that make your company money, let me share why our training is different. We've noticed that the best architects know a series of best practices and they apply them to every project. So we took all these best practices and put them into this course.
The Microsoft ecosystem is evolving faster than ever. Copilot, Power Platform, security, modern work, Azure AI, new features every week, new opportunities every day. But learning is scattered. Events are expensive, limited, and difficult to access. That changes now. Welcome to M365Con, the world's largest online Microsoft 365 convention. 2 powerful weeks, 1 week of workshops, 1 week of free global talks and keynotes. Build your own learning path with expert-led workshops. From Power Platform to security, from Copilot to Azure AI, you choose what matters to you. Then join over 60 free sessions with most valuable professionals, Microsoft trainers, architects, and innovators from around the world. Meet the community, explore the virtual expo, connect with experts, and be part of a global Microsoft experience. Accessible, global, interactive, and designed for every Microsoft 365 professional. M365Con, your community, your learning path, your Microsoft 365 future.
Visit M365 FM, your daily destination for everything happening across the Microsoft cloud. In this show, we unpack Microsoft 365 Azure, Power Platform, security, and AI innovations in a clear, practical way so you can stay current without getting overwhelmed. Tune in to get concise updates, real-world context, and ideas you can use today. M365 FM decodes the Microsoft cloud every day by delivering practical insights, expert interviews, and hands-on strategies for IT admins, architects, developers, and decision makers. Each episode breaks down the latest updates, explores Power Platform capabilities, and provides real-world guidance on automation, digital transformation, and low-code development to help you move from concept to action. What sets M365 FM apart is a simple combination: fresh daily episodes that keep you current, a practical focus that prioritizes actionable strategies, comprehensive coverage across the full Microsoft ecosystem, and deep expert insights that blend technical depth with governance and business context. The result is useful, implementable guidance instead of abstract theory. You can listen to M365 FM wherever you get podcasts, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Music, Amazon Music, or another favorite player. Pick your platform, subscribe, and never miss an episode. We publish new content consistently so you can stay plugged into the fast-moving Microsoft cloud landscape. In our featured episode, we explore how Microsoft Fabric and Copilot are reshaping data engineering, making pipelines, models, and reports faster to build while introducing new kinds of friction. Fabric unifies storage, compute, and analytics, but it doesn't remove responsibility. It accelerates decisions and forces teams to confront architectural debt sooner. On M365 FM, you'll gain a deeper understanding of the most significant updates shaping Microsoft 365, Copilot, Power Platform, Azure, security, and modern work. Each episode simplifies complex features and roadmaps into practical guidance you can apply immediately, helping you make smarter decisions and keep your organization ahead of the curve. Our mission is to make cloud technology approachable by emphasizing clarity over complexity, action over theory, and empowerment over confusion. We break down Microsoft's rapidly evolving ecosystem into simple, meaningful concepts so professionals can adopt solutions that work, avoid common pitfalls, and confidently embrace the future of cloud and AI. If you're new to the show, start with our Microsoft Essentials playlist, carefully selected evergreen episodes that explain core topics across Microsoft 365, Azure, Copilot, security, Windows, Teams, and Entra ID. These foundational episodes introduce practical, repeatable approaches like API-first PowerShell, autonomous agents, cloud forensics, and AI-driven contract management. Our featured essential episodes highlight key practical scenarios, moving to API-first PowerShell and modern auth flows, seeing autonomous agents in action and how they impact workflows, and investigating cloud breaches to understand how a single click can cascade into bigger security failures. Each story is meant to teach immediate lessons you can apply. There are more essential episodes worth your time that dive into AI contract management, compliance time loop issues, shadow IT risks from agent factories, Power Platform security pitfalls, and Fabric governance challenges. These episodes explain the real risks and governance needs that arise when speed and automation outpace structure. Explore episodes by category to dive deeper into specific Microsoft technologies: data and analytics, Power Platform governance and architecture, security and identity, Azure operations, Copilot and AI governance, and Dynamics 365 integration. Each stream focuses on practical, domain-specific guidance so you can follow the topics most relevant to your role. Meet the host, Mirko Peters, a Microsoft 365 strategist based in Stuttgart with over 15 years of hands-on experience building modern workplace solutions. Mirko combines technical depth with a business mindset, focusing on practical, adoptable solutions and community learning to help teams transition from legacy systems to cloud-enabled collaboration. Join over 10,000
Awesome. We're back again, live on track. Hopefully you enjoyed your little break of 15 minutes. So now we can continue. Here's a little interaction question to you if you're already here. So how is this training for you so far? So just give me some kind of feedback. Is it easy for you? It is challenging you? It's difficult, or even you say, I'm lost. Please help me. I hope it's not. So in any case, you just want to answer it quickly. Here's a QR code again. And in that case, give us a short feedback, and then we continue right away with the training in that case. So for Sandra, it's right level. For someone, it's challenging. Okay, good. I hope it's not too challenging. At least no one said at the end, it's too difficult. That's good to know. All right, then I would say let us continue with the next level we just have, and this is relationships. What is important about relationships, just to know, is that's really crucial. Without relationships, that wouldn't make Dataverse so special. So this is one of the most important skills to understand, and also one of the complex one, if you want. So besides security, it's not just about connecting two tables to each other. It's also defining what the behavior between these twos are. So in that case, what you see on this picture is I do have my continents. This is our next goal, what we want to achieve. We want to create the continent table. And then we just defining, it can be Europe, North Africa, South Africa, North America, South America, Africa, Asia, or Antarctica if you live there. But these are the main continents we have, and based on that, you do have, the country you just connecting. So if you're living in Europe, obviously there's one continent, but there can be several other countries there, like Germany, like Italy, like these two only in that case. But France and England and Belgium and Switzerland, Austria, Finland, Norway, Sweden, Portugal, etc., etc. So a lot of these countries obviously belongs to Europe. So there's one continent, one Europe, and obviously several. So in that case, we're talking about the one-to-many relationship. One continent, Europe in that case, many countries, Germany, Italy. Sometimes you have the situation differently. So you do have an n-to-one, a many-to-one relationship in that case. Or sometimes you have also that many-to-many relationship as well. So many-to-many relationship is something we're excluding for today out, because this is not too complex, but it can get a bit complex. But just imagine you do have a venue where you're inviting people to a party or to an event. And then you do have, people you're just inviting every time. So several people can come to the same venue again and again, to the same event or different events in the same building again and again. So then you do have a many-to-many relationships in that case. But today we just take it easy. We want to understand relationships on a very basic level, because relationships is something which can get really interesting. Let's say it like this. So let's start with Lab 4. And Lab 4 is easy to do. Let me just go in here. It's about relationships and lookups. One of the most interesting things ever. So let me just go back here. Let me just leave this. And let me just return back now to table. So I can just go this way, by the way, and go and open everything up. You see, I have access to it, but I can also click directly into this and can also start this one. So in that case, I do have now my country name, my description, my population. Currently not filled out, but this is something which we want to change now in that chapter. Now we want to create a new table. And this time we're just creating the table the old-fashioned way without Copilot. We can do it with Copilot, but we can also do it the old-fashioned way. But I will show you only once in your lab. It will be the old-fashioned way because I just want that you're seeing the two things, but I want to do it this time with Copilot as well and connect. So you can see also the awesome entity relationship diagram as well. So that's a little bit different to what you have in your lab, but a little bit. So let me just go in here. And as you can see, I just wanted to create now a new table. You don't see it there. So what was my issue? I was already on my country table. So if I'm just going back to my tables, then obviously I see my table here again. So if I go on table advanced properties, it has not really a very exciting name, to be honest. You come to the old way, old-fashioned how you do this. So usually you just go in and you just click on continent, and continent automatically been added. Here you do have the primary column, which you can just change. I personally don't change this one. I always keep it on name because then it's mostly the same. But sometimes there are requirements from the client side. They just want to have it renamed. It's always better to rename it before you have created that. So why? Because then you already have created all the technical name. The technical name should be the same like the display name. That's a golden rule. Why? Because if you're a developer, you just want to connect to that one field. And if the display name is completely different to the technical name, then you have a problem. You don't find that field, maybe. I mean, with Copilot in the future, we will not care about this one, so we can change display name, but it is. But in formal development, I really recommend every time if someone has not created it right or even misspelled this one. For example, misspelling is also something which happens a lot if human just typing something in. So instead of continent, for example, that you just write something like this down, continent, something like this. I've also seen, some of my co-workers or some friends at work, they said, it's just only a typo. We don't do a typo because that typo, if you just do it like this, it automatically, let us do it for a moment. Let's do it for a moment. So you see this directly. It's just been going into the data and you can't change it from there anymore. So I do have now, with that mistake, not continent instead of with a T, So you can't change this anymore. You can't go to your this one here. You can change the display name. Yeah, I can do this. Let me just change the display name. Then you say continent. Problem solved, right? Here we go. So, Bülent, why are you just doing such kind of a drama? I solved that within 5 seconds. Sometimes even clients come to that and say, let's just rename the display name because the only thing which you see is the display name. But look at this. This hasn't been renamed. Only this has been just renamed. And if you just go into the metadata, in the metadata, it's still wrong. It's still with D instead of T. So you're changing that only on one place, but there's so many other places where it's not changed. So in that case, this is something which you think it's a small thing, but I can tell you stories from my past, how little things like that just confused and led later, not maybe tomorrow when you once deployed that to production, but a couple months later to some kind of issues. Today, a classic one. Today, something happened. I can just tell you as well. I do have a very nice client, and I just had a SharePoint list where I'm just pointing my Power Automate there. And this nice, friendly client have just renamed the SharePoint list, and half of the things, because I'm just pointing to that SharePoint list in the Power Automate, didn't work anymore because I needed the name for this. And boom, here we go. Just little renamings can just cause so many effects, especially if you're a developer. So in that case, things like this should be definitely corrected. So I just wanted to show you that this way, this is the old-fashioned way, how you just create this one, but I'm just deleting this one now. And how can I delete this one? Pretty simple. I'm just going in here, and on the top right, you see delete from this environment. And then it's going to be deleted. Now, what I want is, I just want, not like in the lab stated, the old-fashioned way, how I want to connect this one. I just want now to do it together with Copilot. So you do have two different ways. Once you see that in the video now, like I'm just doing this, and the other one is like how you can just do this on your lab. Really, the results are the same, more or less. You see now two different approaches how you can do this, and the Copilot one is also be nice. So let me see if I'm not already regretting this one because I just clicked on deleting, and hopefully it doesn't take ages just to do this. So in that case, what I'm just doing, I'm just copying here. Oh, I don't need to copy. I just wanted to make a new browser tab, but that's good. So let me just go and click on table and click on tables. Now we come to the Copilot part again. So let me just put in existing table. Here we go. Country, country, country. Here we go. And that's something which just existed. So now I just want to do, I want to create now a new table, continent. So let me say, I can go in here and say, describe a new table. And let's see how good this works with Copilot. Create a new table, continent, and make a one-to-many relationship to table country. The one example would be Europe, continent to has a relationship to Germany, country. Oh. Let's see how this works. Good. Now I had created me continent name. That's great. But it hasn't really connected this one. Good. But what I can do from here is, and that's good for the visualizer, is I can now create now the relationship. One continent to one country. So let me see. I can do it vice versa, but I just need to click this one. Create this one. One continent. That's interesting. I can click continent to continent, but I can't do this one. Country one, that doesn't make any sense. So I'm just doing it once so you can see it visualized. Without that, that really doesn't make any sense. So usually this, as you can see now here, here's a one, and this shall illustrate in that case a many in that case. So let me see. I want to edit this one. I want to have a continent. It is really interesting that I can't do this. however I want to do this. All right, good. Anyhow, let me just go in. Let me just go out from here. I thought I could do this. Then I'm just doing it the old-fashioned way. The old-fashioned way always works. So the old-fashioned way is continent. Here we go. I save it. And now what I can do is I can just create a relationship. There are two ways how you can do this even here. So Microsoft always gives you, two ways. For you, it works, Sandra? Fantastic. Next time you just do this. I have no idea why it didn't work for me, but it's okay. I like it. But very important, as a solution architect, be very creative. And if one way is not working, always have a second or a third way. That's very important. That's, the essence of being a solution architect. Not only come with one way. So in that case, let me now create the relationship. And now I do have here this one here. If I'm on continent, I can do it going from here. That's one way to do. Or I just go into my country table and click here in my columns and create now a so-called lookup. So if I create now a lookup here, and by the way, there are two ways of lookups. One is customer. There's a very special one, comes from Dynamics. Then you will become either for accounts and customers, accounts or contacts. That's a very special one. We can ignore this one. That's only special one, have been created by Microsoft for Dynamics. You have to look up this one. And now, if you do this with lookup, look at this. So I just type in now, in that case, a continent. Here we go. So, and by the way, you see also here a little bit, if this has been created, what's all been checked in allow form fill assistance. That's in the preview. That's a really cool feature. So later, if you're using a model-driven app, which we also will build, by the way, in the next chapter or in the next two chapters, then you have the chance that you can use the form fill assistant and it fills you the missing fields automatically. I'm not sure about based on which criteria at the moment, but maybe it just looks in Dataverse, and just if there's more data, it can compare, and then based on that, it just takes this one. That's really cool. So let me just take this one, and related table is obviously country, and save this one. Here we go. Now I'm not able to connect this one. So if I'm ready already, I'm ready. This is the one way how to do this. So if I'm now clicking now on not on country, but on continent, that was one above here. So you see not much of this. So you see, by the way, very interesting relationship name. So Bülent country, continent, Bülent country. That's nonsense what Microsoft is creating with Dataverse. They have AI. They can now use much more meaningful names in the beginning. Hopefully this will come sooner or later. Not that anyone from business side is ever interested in look into what's happening, behind the scenes. But that's really interesting. This is really a no-go as a name, to be very honest. So I can really recommend you to best practices and naming schemes. Some of them have been documented in the community quite well, and there's also, I think, one paper by Microsoft you should also be able to find and use as well. Now, let me just go back. What you don't see here, by the way, is how the behavior is between these relationships. And the behavior is one of the most interesting ones, and also getting one of the most complex ones. You don't see that here in the columns. You only see that in relationships directly. If you go into relationships, and then you see this again, but you see more. So you see now one country to this one. It's very interesting, but anyhow, so let me go in here, and then you see on the below the relationship behavior. In the lab, it's also a little bit described there as well. So what is behind? So the thing is that if I'm creating now a new record, I cannot easily delete any record. It's not really bothering. But you can just have also a so-called parental relationship. For example, if there's no country, there's no continent Europe, then usually there's also not a definition of Germany. Let's give me some kind of context which makes more sense. For example, you're just working for Microsoft and you're a Microsoft employee. So when Microsoft does not exist anymore, so it's been removed for whatever reason, then obviously you're not working for Microsoft anymore if the company doesn't exist. That means that would be a parental relationship between the company, the account, and the employees, the contact. So if you just set this parental, that means if you remove Microsoft, automatically all contacts will be removed from Dataverse as well. Doesn't make sense. So in that case, this is how you use parental. Currently it's referential, or what you can also do is you can say, I'm restricting from deleting. So you need, first of all, to tighten up the relationship between these two records. And based on that, you can just delete this one. This can become a little bit complex. And I've seen people struggling. By the way, I struggled with that also for a very long time. Took me really ages to learn this one. But once you just really understand the concept behind, you will say this is very, very important. And you can set this one also not only referential and parental. With custom, you can set it everything, how the relationship shall be in terms of deletion, assigning, sharing, unsharing, reparenting. But that gets too complex for today. But this is also something you can really fill in 1 or 2 hours and train people on that. Good. Now we do have the continent. The thing is that, how do we get now the data into it? So once again, let's give it a try. Let me just go to Copilot. Here we go. I wanted to create a new table with Copilot. I'm not clicking on the existing table. First of all, continent. Let me just add continent there. Here we go. So continent currently do have not any kind of data because we haven't created it with Copilot. Let me just put in Europe. And as you can see, I can put it in very easily in here. So North America, South America, Asia, Australia. Here we go. Now, that was simple. Now I just want to fill in the other ones as well. So let me just click in and put in country again. Back to the game. So once you do this, unfortunately, you don't see the relationship between this one. You can also not, choose one which is already existing. It only allows you to do the new thing, which is a bit annoying. But anyhow, now let me just do the following. I just want now to create a new table. So I just described this one. And this time I'm saying create me a new country to table with a description of what makes this country special? In which continent it lies, and an accurate population. So now here we go. Has now created this one here. So this one is not saved. As long as you don't see the green sign, it's not saved. Let me go and click on view this one. So Japan is known for cherry blossoms and lies in Asia and has a population like this. France is famous for cuisine and arts in Europe. And you see now that it's very interesting that he hasn't created now a lookup, he just have created a so-called choice in that case. Smart, because these are the things usually are not changing. So they have Kenya, Canada, no. I'm not sure if that's the second largest country, because you have maybe it is, but not from the population. So that's the population, and then you have Brazil. I would not take the numbers as granted, to be very honest. Always challenge this one and look on places if add more data countries. Fill in every data. Let's see. So if you're doing like this, Copilot works for me. It just adds me now the data. So what you can do is now, this is a little bit annoying, not really recommended, but if you want to try to put this one into this screen here, what you can do is you can just go into country, and you can just open this one up in edit a new tab, and then you can just go in here, and then you don't have to change every time. What you can do is, this is really old-fashioned. So let me just put in continent as well. If I'm clicking here, Brazil obviously is South Africa, and now it's just been connected with the wrong one. That's what I thought. That was my mistake. I'm correcting my mistake. Give me a second. I can't live with that. So, solutions, demo. And I haven't connected anything yet, so that's why I am that's super easy just to do. So I do have continent. So display name, it's a lookup, and it's just referring to the wrong one. Good. Here we go. So here we go. Now, columns, continent, add now, look up here. Country. But that's not wrong. I just have selected this one here wrong. Let me see. Let me just delete this one. Delete from this environment. Here we go. Could not find. That's nice. All right, let's do it like this. So relationship, one to many. So, but I'm just doing that from here. It's easier. So one many to one. No. So one Yeah, that's the one I just wanted to have. So country, continent. Here we go. That already exists. I know. I call it now too, in any case. And then here we go. And let me see. It might be that this is not there because I just need to reload this page. And here it is. So now we do have two continents. So here we go. Now we have it correctly. So the other one is just, I'm too nervous. Something at the end. So it's always good to have everything like I've just described in the lab, and then you can just go lab by lab. Then less mistakes happen. So now we can continue. South Africa, and this is North America. China obviously is Asia. France is Europe. India is Asia. Italy is Europe. Japan is Asia. Mexico is North America. And USA obviously also North America. Now, what I'm also doing is, yeah, I can explain that to you. Can I know why you have 3 continent columns in the table? I did one by mistake, and one I just need to get out and delete. That's why. Why we have 3, I don't know. Usually we should only have 2 in that case. So if you look here, we have only 2. I don't know where you've seen the third one. But this other one I wanted to delete, it hasn't let me. But this is something I can handle later with deleting. I just didn't want it to save too much. I want to save us time and didn't spend too much time on that. Alrighty, so now what I'm just doing is I'm now look for Brazil, and look, here's Brazil, and I can now take the number and take it here. So my preferred scenario would be I don't need to do this one. I just can go in and that Copilot is just doing this one. Yeah. So usually that's my expectation, but it doesn't work for me. If it works for you, please let me know. This is super annoying, to be very honest. No, let me just copy and paste at least 3-4 more examples. Let me just take Germany as well. Let's see if I have Germany. Hasn't added Germany as well. Good. Then, but I've seen Japan. Let me just take Japan. Here we go, Japan. Here we go. And last but not least, the population. So at least I have a bit of an example. So here we go. Good. All right. So this is a bit annoying just to do this. Yeah, exactly. So it's much better to start with a full Copilot prompt, including test and pop. Exactly. Yeah. I just have separated this one so we understand the basics. But if you have already know what you need on information, just do this with one div. That's how the Copilot experience here works at best. So then you're just getting all that information instead of how I just have separated this one. Because if I separate it like this, you see, we still have to do a lot of manual work. But if you're using Copilot with creating everything at once, then obviously you're just getting the better experience. As for now, I still have requirements, like, hey, I want to use Copilot everywhere just to fill in the information. I just want as well the entity relationship diagram, if it's loaded, that it just show me up this directly, already what it is. But this doesn't exist. But once again, in that case, let me just give you the link I just was referring from my colleague Alan De Castro. So I'm just pasting now the link into the chat. And let me just make this a bit bigger. Great guy. So not only because he works in my company, but it's really a great guy. He's also a fast track engineer as well. And a fast track solution architect. So in that case, he just built in the Dataverse RD visualizer. Some kind on the XL toolbox, these kind of things exist, but I think this is a really much nicer way just to do, you know. So, and this is, you know, why does it fit with a plan designer? So, and yeah, perfect to start, but difficult to enhance. Unfortunately, that's the case with Dataverse since long time. Microsoft don't have plans, if you ask me, that we just going with the way currently we just doing. Currently we just learning the basics, but I think in the future only agents shall do that kind of things. But this is something I can really recommend to you. So just search for Alan De Castro, and then great guy. All right, I would say let's go with the next one. And the next one is views and forms. So if you're just talking about views and forms, then obviously this is something we just have to partly as well. Let me just go to the next lab. And this is where we enhancing and defining our user experience, our UX. You know, this is for a long time in Dataverse, you could only create the views and the forms, but you never saw what that kind of effect it has. Now you can, and that's really great. So let me just go in here. I'm just leaving this page. I'm not saving this one. And now I'm just here, and I'm just modifying now my, well, for my country in that case, you know, if I want to give, you know, a UI just to enter these kind of things. So first of all, let me just do this with views. So you have views either here. That's the most easiest way to select. And we're just taking the active countries. You have several views, by the way, that have been created out of the box. So active countries, inactive countries. That doesn't make sense so much with countries, but you know, if you have, for example, active contracts, inactive contracts, active accounts, inactive accounts, then it makes sense. Then you do have your advanced find view in that case. So here you just defining what appears if you just type something in advanced find. Advanced find is a technology in Dataverse for a long time, still exists, but you know it better under a better name now, which is called Dataverse search now. Then you do have your associated view. That means you see everything but been connected in a relationship. So you can see it there. You have also some kind of a lookup view there, and you do have also a quick find. A quick find is very important because here you just define all the columns which been searched if someone is typing something into search for. The good thing about this one is you can really define, for example, you can put in not only the country name, but also the population there, the description, and many other information if you would enhance your tables in here. Good, but we're just interested only in active countries for now. So in active countries, you see that's the only data we have with country name. And now we want to add now several other columns in there, which we have just created. So as you can see now, this is the old one, and this is the new one. And as you can see, this doesn't make any sense. You can go in here, and let me just type in, is this not edit the previous column? Let me just type in old. Yeah. So every time now I see this one is old, then I'm not really falling it for it to use it. So I'm just using this one. And then I'm just using the description. Here we go. Description mostly a little bit larger as the countries itself. You can see I can adjust this one, and then the population. And that's it, more or less, yeah, what we have here. So very easy, and I can now click on Save and Publish, and then it's available. It will be, when we're building our model-driven app in the next chapter, crucial to have this one here. And now I can also modify as well the main form. So if I'm just going back from here, because I've done my job here, there's, by the way, not lots of this possibilities in here. I'm just not spending too much time here, but in the form, and that's where we have much more options. So I just click on country, and I can just go in here and click on forms, or I can also go into the data experience and click here forms as well. It's also possible. You do have 3 out-of-the-box forms there. So the main type, the card type, and the quick view type. We're modifying most of the time the main type. It's always called information if you create something new. If it's out of the box tables like account, then they have the name account there, for example, or contact or whatever. So now our country still is missing all the fields. So the same like previously, I can just put in here continent, population, description, that's it. So what I'm doing as a best practice, this owner thing is something you just can't avoid. And you can make it invisible, so it's not seeable there, but it doesn't make any sense because every time you want to create a new country, you would use now the model-driven apps for that, doing this, you would run into an error because it's been mandatory. Every time you see a red asterisk, it's mandatory. You can turn off this is mandatory for the country name, but you can't turn it off for an owner because every time, every record, or called also row, needs an owner in Dataverse. It can be either a person, it can be a team. And that's very important for you to know that this is something you just can't change. What you can do is you can hide this at least here on top. So this is a header. Previously, you had also a footer, but the footer has been removed by Microsoft a couple of years ago. So you can put it in here. You can put up, I remember, up to 1. Let me see. Or can you do more? I'm not sure about this one. You can do, I think, up to 3, 4, something like this. So, but I just want to have now country name, continent, population, description. That's absolutely fine. It's not so many, but if you have too many of these fields in there, obviously it makes sense to categorize them, and you can categorize them by so-called tabs. If you click on that 3, I always say Adidas stripes, then you have your components in there. And if you have your components in there, you can add a so-called 1-column tab. Let me just do this. Here we go. Give it one more try. Here we go. And if I click on this, I can rename it whatever I want. You know, for example, details. And I can just put in, for example, here the population and the description into details. Here we go. And then you do have now, by this, a way of how you can structure it a little bit. Now for 4 fields, it does not really make so much sense because it doesn't really overwhelm you. Good. So for some reason, general is now empty. Let me just put in general here on the right side. Now we're ready to go. We save this one. And if you see on the left side, there's not only components, what you can do. You have can add a quick view, subgrid, timeline, much more possibilities, even AI, which an agent response. on a model-driven app. Nice. And then you do have form libraries, JS, and business rules. So business rules is some kind of automation, which we today not looking into it, but this is nice if you have a business rule, for example, there is some field is not filled out, then make that field mandatory. And once it's been filled out, then maybe it's not mandatory anymore, for example, or you're hiding fields. That's what you can do. And then there's also form libraries as well. So if you click on add library, you can just put in JavaScript there. I remember from my previous project how this always had led to, well, interesting scenarios with clients, because when they are business people, obviously these are the time where they said, okay, what are you doing? We don't understand you anymore. But I can tell you, this is something which was Copilot. I think this will be more or less a past thing and not really basic, but still exists. You can still use it in model-driven apps. But now I just have saved and published that. We are now good to go. And now I will, the adding to the Copilot, by the way, I see is now in that lab built in, but that's okay. What I can do now is the following. I can also do it manually. So if I just go in now to my country table, I can now click on edit. I just come now to this place where I have added this kind of information. I can do it now directly from here, as you have seen. That's possible. But what I can do is also, I can now say, I select now Germany, and I now click on edit row, and it automatically opens me this form, which is, whoa, so small. Let me just make it a bit bigger. So country, but no details in there. So the population would be, I'm in incognito mode. That's why just saying login again. So now it should load, and I shouldn't have this problem anymore. So details, here we go. So 83 million. Here we go. Description, very snowy here, at least in the place where I live. So, and then you can save this one, and now you have this information. And if you go back now, where I've been, here we go. It also automatically adds this information. So if I'm using it directly in Dataverse, or if I just go in and build that with this way of how I did this, you have seen now that this can also add information there as well. Previously, that was with Dataverse the only way to add data for a very long, very, very long time. I can't, say how many O in long, so long, but I'm very happy that we have since now, I would say 3 or 4 or 5 years now, the chance to enter that kind of information in Dataverse directly. And that is really, a game changer. That's usually what you say, but one which has been very old now. And that's all about the views and forms, how you can just do this. Now, why did we do this? And the reason for this is because of the next lab. And the next lab is about UI configuration. We're finally building our Power App. There is not only one way how to display information. And I know currently there's a lot of discussions, do have Power Apps any kind of a future, because everything's been taken by AI, modeled by AI. To me, yes, still Power Apps is still relevant, but it's not only Power Apps. You can also use Power Pages, which works closely with Dataverse. And that Dataverse is only the database which has been the engine for Power Pages. You can't use anything else. So in that case, you using either a model-driven app or a Canvas app or Power Pages. Canvas app is the only one which really works without Dataverse. You can connect it with SharePoint. You can connect it with another source to display information. Only model-driven apps and Power Pages are depending on Dataverse. And by saying this, we're starting now lab 6. Lab 6 is a very easy one as well. Did we put it in here? Here we go. UI configuration. Now, we want now to combine now everything into an app. So how do we do this? Let me just go back and let me close some kind of windows. So, okay, or maybe just, so let me just go and now I want to start an app. So if I just go in here to all or to app, I can now create now an app from here. So you have the chance of a Canvas app, or model-driven app, or a Power Page. So I'm just taking a model-driven app in that case. And I just call it Global Data Manager. So in the description, I could have also put in something in the lab. There's a description there. I just missed that now. But I'm not clicking of add page. And then I have several options what I can do. I can use a custom Dataverse table, which is it, or I can also describe my page. And this, by the way, very cool. It's very, very much AI in it. If you describe your page and in the way of what you want, and it will just create you an AI generated page to you based on, I think it is React.js on what it's depending on, but it's really cool. It's still in preview and only works if you have an US environment in that case. But yeah, Sandra, that's what I wanted to say. If you are in the US, then it works. So if you don't in the US, you will not have this option. That's why I recommend for training options every time this kind of options, train the latest ones. You only have that in the US environment, this one. So if I click now on my tables, I can now add now country and continent at the same time. So if I click on the magnifier here, country, here we go. And I can go away and just now type in continent. Here we go. So it automatically checks me showing navigation. That means it will automatically add now here. And here we go. Countries, continents. Now, as I have changed the view for active countries, you're already seeing this one. Previously, you should have only seen this one. As we have modified the view already, you see, it works. What is not working, and I'm really a bit surprised because I remember it worked, was the drag and drop option. So usually you drag a click on country and you can just drag it up, because I just want to have maybe the one as a change, but you can only do this by clicking in here on the three dots, and here we go, up and down. But countries are always on top, so that makes absolutely sense. And what you can do is I can just click here on new group, and you don't see it, unfortunately. It's just collapsed. If you just look at this, and you can just change the name from new group to world, for example, or Earth, then you just see that automatically it just changes here. Now I have already here one. You see I haven't modified for the continents the view. That's why you see every time this created on, this is super ugly, if you ask me. You see at least this one, and the rest you see here one. Now, if I publish this one, you can click also on save, but you can automatically, if you're ready, you want to publish this one. What does publish by the way mean? Publish was something previously in the CRM world, in the Dynamics world, you needed to write that physically, not only physically to this database, but make it aware. So everyone who's just been asking the database, Dataverse, that this metadata is then displayed on their end as well. So let me click on this one, on play. And here we go. Now you do have your continents and my countries. And if I click on new, you see that form I just had before, but just with a little bit nicer colors. And if I click now, double click on Brazil, you see then all the information about Brazil now. And I could also enter that information here as well. And that's basically it. Now we have built a very simple one. So, but as we also want to see what you can do with Copilot, this is a model-driven app. That's not necessarily anymore has to do with Dataverse. But let us also build this one, because we do have 3 minutes till our next break and our last break. Let's click on new and describe by page what it is, and let's see what will be generated. So, and you say, I want to add a page where I can manage continents and country data. The cool thing is, what you can do is you can even attach an image or table and say, please build based on that. So 5.0 is now default. That's good. There is a little bit on tooling, like generate images and so on. Let's give it a try. Oh, I just run again into my issue. Might be that I need just to prompt this again. Sign in. Okay, good. And now it just starts now with the agents, So what it's doing now is it's just using now React code. Unfortunately, you just can't use this one and drag that into a Canvas app. That would be so sweet if you can use it. But both are complete different technologies. And based on that, boom, you have now a much nicer version of what you have seen here. This is the old traditional model-driven apps. Works, is natively, but this one is nice. It's been disconnected. Interesting. We found out you are in Germany. You are not allowed to use this one here. But here we go, generative page. So, and I can now, if I reload this one. So let me just, I haven't published this one. That's why it doesn't see, right? So let me publish this one. So if you're just here, you're still in that Copilot mode. That means you can just use this one. Let me just replay this one. And so that happens. It's some kind of a caching issue. But if you just go in here, so you do have, your generative page. And now you can just add now. And that's the thing. It's currently not connected to your Dataverse. It just do anything here. So I can now add, for example, North America. Here we go. Then it's adding. I can now say Germany and connect this one. So here we go. Super cool, super nice. That's also the future of how in the future also Power Apps will be generated. That's why everyone is just writing Power Apps maybe is dead. But let's see how this works. Let's have a 15-minute break. Let's return back at 16:45, and then let's have our last 2 labs, and then let's see how this works. So in that case, see you in 15 minutes or 40 minutes.
Hi, I'm Sean, and I train people to become Power Platform Solutions Architects. If you're watching this, you know Power Platform, but be honest, when you're building a solution, are you using the best tools to solve the problem or just the tools you know? If you love building powerful, scalable solutions that make your company money, let me share why our training is different. We've noticed that the best architects know a series of best practices and they apply them to every project. So we took all these best practices and put them into this course.
Welcome to PowerBros Knowledge, where Power Platform meets pure innovation. Your business runs on chaos, approvals lost, data scattered, time wasted. We know that pain. Now imagine automating everything, faster, smarter, and built for impact. That's where PowerBros come in, architects of digital change. We don't talk trends, we build results. Our Knowledge Hub turns expertise into action, real tutorials, real automation, real impact. Whether it's Power Apps, Automate, Logic Apps, or Entra, we make it work together, smarter. Join the PowerBros movement. 30,000 professionals learning, building, and sharing every day. Ready to transform your workflows? Book us now, and let's build something legendary together. The Microsoft ecosystem is evolving faster than ever. Copilot, Power Platform, security, modern work, Azure AI, new features every week, new opportunities every day. But learning is scattered. Events are expensive, limited, and difficult to access. That changes now. Welcome to M365Con, the world's largest online Microsoft 365 convention. 2 powerful weeks, 1 week of workshops, 1 week of free global talks and keynotes. Build your own learning path with expert-led workshops. From Power Platform to security, from Copilot to Azure AI, you choose what matters to you. Then join over 60 free sessions with most valuable professionals, Microsoft trainers, architects, and innovators from around the world. Meet the community, explore the virtual expo, connect with experts, and be part of a global Microsoft experience. Accessible, global, interactive, and designed for every Microsoft 365 professional. M365Con, your community, your learning path, your Microsoft 365 future.
Hi, I'm Sean, and I train people to become Power Platform Solutions Architects. If you're watching this, you know Power Platform, but be honest, when you're building a solution, are you using the best tools to solve the problem or just the tools you know? If you love building powerful, scalable solutions that make your company money, let me share why our training is different. We've noticed that the best architects know a series of best practices and they apply them to every project. So we took all these best practices and put them into this course.
Welcome to PowerBros Knowledge, where Power Platform meets pure innovation. Your business runs on chaos. Approvals lost, data scattered, time wasted. We know that pain. Now imagine automating everything, faster, smarter, and built for impact. That's where PowerBros come in, architects of digital change. We don't talk trends, we build results. Our knowledge hub turns expertise into action, real tutorials, real automation, real impact. Whether it's Power Apps, Automate, Logic Apps, or Entra, we make it work together, smarter. Join the PowerBros movement. 30,000 professionals learning, building, and sharing every day. Ready to transform your workflows? Book us now, and let's build something legendary together. The Microsoft ecosystem is evolving faster than ever. Copilot, Power Platform, security, modern work, Azure AI, new features every week, new opportunities every day. But learning is scattered. Events are expensive, limited, and difficult to access. That changes now. Welcome to M365Con, the world's largest online Microsoft 365 convention. 2 powerful weeks. 1 week of workshops, 1 week of free global talks and keynotes. Build your own learning path with expert-led workshops. From Power Platform to security, from Copilot to Azure AI, you choose what matters to you. Then join over 60 free sessions with most valuable professionals, Microsoft trainers, architects, and innovators from around the world. Meet the community, explore the virtual expo, connect with experts, and be part of a global Microsoft experience. Accessible, global, interactive, and designed for every Microsoft 365 professional. M365Con, your community, your learning path, your Microsoft 365 future. Welcome to PowerBros Knowledge, where Power Platform meets pure innovation. Your business runs on chaos. Approvals lost, data scattered, time wasted. We know that pain. Now imagine automating everything, faster, smarter, and built for impact. That's where PowerBros come in, architects of digital change. We don't talk trends, we build results. Our knowledge hub turns expertise into action. Real tutorials, real automation, real impact. Whether it's Power Apps, Automate, Logic Apps, or Entra, we make it work together, smarter. Join the PowerBros movement. 30,000 professionals learning, building, and sharing every day. Ready to transform your workflows? Book us now, and let's build something legendary together.
Hi, I'm Sean, and I train people to become Power Platform Solutions Architects. If you're watching this, you know Power Platform, but be honest, when you're building a solution, are you using the best tools to solve the problem? or just the tools you know. If you love building powerful, scalable solutions that make your company money, let me share why our training is different. We've noticed that the best architects know a series of best practices and they apply them to every project. So we took all these best practices and put them into this course.
The Microsoft ecosystem is evolving faster than ever. Copilot, Power Platform, security, modern work, Azure AI, new features every week, new opportunities every day. But learning is scattered. Events are expensive, limited, and difficult to access. That changes now. Welcome to M365Con, the world's largest online Microsoft 365 convention. 2 powerful weeks, 1 week of workshops, 1 week of free global talks and keynotes. Build your own learning path with expert-led workshops. From Power Platform to security, from Copilot to Azure AI, you choose what matters to you. Then join over 60 free sessions with most valuable professionals, Microsoft trainers, architects, and innovators from around the world. Meet the community, explore the virtual expo, connect with experts, and be part of a global Microsoft experience. Accessible, global, interactive, and designed for every Microsoft 365 professional. M365Con, your community, your learning path, your Microsoft 365 future.
And over 4-hour workshop marathon here. And hopefully you have the same energy with me. And let's deep dive now into a topic which is very important for the success of every project. It's about security. And I told you in the beginning I can talk about security really for a very long time. And usually that could be also 2 days workshop only about security, to deep dive, to learn a lot about these kind of things. But very, very important is that we need to understand that how security works. I just made an illustration, and that's why I'm just jumping from a hot slide now to PowerPoint, and hopefully you all can see this one. So when we're talking about security, so what we have talked about is we talked about tables and columns and relationships and also about the views and the forms. Now we're talking about security. And when we're talking about security, there are 4 major pillars we talk about. The first one is security roles. These are crucial ones. And you do have table row ownership. Then you have the concept of business units and column level security. Dataverse security has really a long, long history. It comes, from the Dynamics world, is over, I would say, over 20 years now old. And this is very important for you to understand that there have been made crucial changes to that security concept, especially last year when something came in, and I also want to show that to you. But step by step. First of all, let's talk about role-based security. Now, you give more or less someone some kind of a key. And that key allows you, if you're an owner of a house, that allows you to go to your room. But in your house, you also have locked doors, rooms, which separate keys. That's usually not the key you're using if you're just entering the house. These are different keys. So that is how you can imagine in your head how this all works. What Microsoft is just talking about so-called privileges and access levels. So a privilege just tells you what can I do. For example, create a contact, edit an account. An access level just tells you where can I do this. So roles I own, rows in my business unit. So these are, by the way, also the records. So now here we have an example, and that example is pretty simple with accounts, contact, and user. So the accounts are the companies. A company like Microsoft or Contoso or Zava, that's a new name and a replacement then for Contoso in the future. You do have your contacts. That could be Satya Nadella from Microsoft, Amy Hood from Microsoft, Amy Coleman from Microsoft, or from Contoso, now fantasy name Tim Zuckerman. Now you also have a user column there. In that user column, for example, allows you to access some specific things in there. So these are a one-to-N relationship, but currently you don't see anything here. So the question is, what's going on here? Why can't I see nice rows like this? And the reason is I don't have no read privileges for that. That means someone who's logging in and only see the table exists, user table exists, but there's no data in it, can't read the information on the table because there was never read privileges given to that. Well, next example. Now, what's happening is the following. I even don't see the user table anymore. If I can't see the user table in that case, or any kind of other tables, what does that mean? Then in that case, it's not a privilege thing, it's an access level thing. That means I don't have any access to this table. That's why I don't see it. I don't even know that it exists in my table, or in my Dataverse. And that's the difference. So with privileges, you can still see the table, but you can't access it. But with the access level, you might not see that there is this table available for you. And then you can't see the data. And that's the two ways of how you can secure data that's not been seen by others you just don't want. I remember in my CRM, and that's really a long CRM career of 10 years, that I had always discussion with clients, and they always want to hide data. That's one of the most things. They always say, like, defining, this is what clients, what their people shall not see. That's most of the time how they're defining security. That's interesting. Now, let's talk now about something else. Now, we have now talked about I can't see the table or I can't see the data in table. But how about modifying table? Now it's the same two tables what you see, account table and contact table, but now you see some of them are grayed out. So what does it grayed out mean? The grayed out mean that here, the green ones, I have added privileges. Now these are, for example, my own roles which I have created. That means I can update them. But if I don't have created them on my own, like this one's here, so I'm not allowed to edit them. So you see that we're going now deeper and granular on our settings for security in Dataverse. And that's interesting, right? So what do we have next? Next, we do have column level security, or some still say field level security. Sometimes you do have a form and you have information fields there, but sometimes you don't want to show some specific information. For example, you do have the contact one, and people could have access to it, but maybe Satya and Nadella don't want it. Everyone is calling him and texting him. So that's why this phone number is been grayed out. So here you see also an example as well. So if you don't have any column level access granted, no user can see that information. So in that case, that's also one way of how you can secure information. So for example, I had a situation that in one of my projects several years ago, when I used column level security, column level security access, that was in a sales process. And that sales process, they said we want to have a field where it just writes down if you're allowed to deal with that country, yes or no, because there were some countries you're not allowed to do any kind of deals. For example, Iran is one of the countries where the company were restricted not to work with. And based on that, they just wanted to use that kind of information. And then they had some secret field where they put some additional information. It should no one be seen except for only a few specific people. So then we do have the concept of business units. Just think about the organizational structure you have in your company, or maybe Microsoft. So Microsoft as an overall entity, and then it can be separated into several continents, for example, Europe and North America. And now with North America, you can separate it into Canada and the USA. And then from USA perspective, you can separate that into the West and the East, or in several other pieces. If you do it like this, then you can place the users in the according business unit here. So if you do it like this, you only give people enough information which is available in your business unit. So for example, if someone is here, you usually don't see the information which has been shared here, except you just make it organizational wide open and everyone can see it. Sometimes only on C-level the information shall be shared and not really interesting for people who are just working on lower levels. So based on that, this is something you can also do and create some kind of a security concept. But this security concept was always a problem, a huge problem. Across my entire Dataverse life at Evanade, I had always situations where we couldn't meet the client requirement by this. It's nice, it sometimes works, but the reality showed we needed to do something else. And the something else is concept number one. It's a so-called table or row ownership-based security. That means that you, instead of that a user is owning a record on row, that you're creating a team and you've been put then into a team instead that a user is doing this. It has huge advantages. Advantage number one, what happens if this one user is not available? Can be fired, I hope not, but you never know. Second is, for example, is on sick leave. Third, it could be on maternal leave, for example, some kind of vacation as well. So if then someone is not available and it's stuck with only one person, that one record, that's not good. So in that case, team ownership makes a lot of sense how to do and create this one. And based on that, you can, for example, create a help desk, for example, as a team. And the good thing is, if it's a so-called owning team, an owning team means it can not only have this one record, it can also have a security role. If a team has a security role, then you don't necessarily need to add this security role to one person, to one user. And that makes it super, super easier to manage, as if you just want to add, these security roles, which gives you access in Dataverse to tables and to records on a user level. If you have a company with 10 people, that's some kind of manageable. If you have a company with over 1,000 or 10,000 or even 100,000 people, then it's a huge mess. And you always want to guarantee, if people are not working in some certain positions anymore, that they don't have access to sensitive data. That's why with owning teams, you're just doing a much better way. But wait a second, there's something else. There's something called access teams. And access teams is another way of security mechanism, which has been huge all the time, but still is huge. With access teams, you're allowing people temporarily to work on a project and then remove them, because you don't need them constantly having access to that information. So what does it mean? So if you have an owning team, and let's say you have 10 projects and hundreds of people, 1,000 of people have worked on that, then these people still have access to it. Of course, you can remove them manually from the team, and you handle that, but that's so much overhead. At least, before everything was Copilot. Maybe with Copilot and AI, things will be easier in the future. But with access teams, you only gave so-called temporary access to the people. For example, if you're working on a project, you want to win it, you need for a specific phase only specific people. Then you can add them, for example, a sales team for this time. And once they just did their work, you can remove them and don't give them access anymore. The huge advantage of access teams is that these working much faster from a time perspective, from a performance perspective. And that's why access teams were not so easy to implement, but once you just know how the concept works, you just have a much more performant system based on that. Last but not least, and this came, don't let me lie, 5 or 6 years ago, role ownership in so-called modernized business units. This was really huge once Microsoft just dropped this out. What is it all about? So let's assume that, this wonderful lady and this wonderful gentleman working in apartment D. And let's say this gentleman owns this row. As long as he was in the same unit, business unit, in the same department, also this wonderful lady had access to it. But once, and that happens frequently often, people are changing their positions within the company. So he just took another opportunity and moved to another department. So he's still the owner of that, because they were just using, the user owns the record. But once he just used to department B, this wonderful lady didn't have any chance to access that information anymore. No chance. And that was a huge problem, minimum 10 years. And that's why this Teams ownership security concept has been developed and used in several of our projects, but not only at our place, but on other places as well. That's why then Microsoft came and said, we don't have only one owner, we have two owners. And the second owner is not a person, it's a business unit. So once a record is created here, or row, the owning business unit also been here tied to A. So even the original owner is moving to another apartment, the row is still connected to that department, and this wonderful lady still has the chance to read this one, has access to it. Sounds like you say, wow, cool, easy. Why didn't Microsoft implement that earlier? Very good question. But at the end, it's really good that this exists and gives you just another option to build a very good security concept for your client. Very, very important. Security, or in some parts of the Power Platform, we also hear about governance, but let's call it security in that Dataverse context, is something very crucial you just need. I know this was a lot of theory, and I know especially at that late time, we're not that fresh anymore. That's usually, if I do a Dataverse training, that would be definitely something I'm starting on the next day, because everyone is fresh in with his or her head. But obviously, this is something very, very important. I just wanted to share with you. Now, let's go to our next lab. And in our next lab, we just want to learn how the security data fundamentals works. So we don't usually have only one user. We don't have several users. And the one user is also at the same time an admin. That means if you're an admin, then obviously it doesn't work for the whole security concept. So, but let's at least try to find out what we can do at least. So let me see and go into the next lab. Lab 7, Dataverse Security Fundamentals. In that case, let me just jump back to my solutions. Here we go. And now before I go to solutions, I need to go to Power Platform Admin Center. So I can do it two ways. So one way is just go in here on the right side and click on the plans. And then, oh, not plans, sorry, on Admin Center. It's the first one. And then it automatically opens the Admin Center there. Here we go. Also very big. Let me just make it a bit bigger for us to read. So if I'm going now to manage, then you will see lots of environments, which we just have created so far, you know, and some people have also created their own environments. Good, good. Now, in that case, what I'm doing is I just select now my environment, which I'm just working today. It's Adele. And I do have the chance to go directly into it or go to settings from here. Let me go into this. And you can also go from here to settings. Now, if I'm in settings, there's a lot of things. If you don't know how to choose, there's this search bar here, and you type in security role. And you see that is under users and permissions. So under users and permissions, you do have security roles. You can't imagine how glad I am since 2-3 years, or 4 even, we do have now this here. We can configure the security roles in that environment within the Power Platform Admin Center. That wasn't possible for a very long time. You still needed to go to the legacy UI to configure this one. Wow, explaining some people who starting new and going to that UI, that legacy UI, people like, what is that? You're like, hey, welcome to the hell. That was the UI before. I remember I was in Madrid 2015, and they just introduced a new legacy UI, and people were like, yes, that's so cool. That was really before the previous very techy looking UI, but I'm very happy that this UI today looks much better and is also more performant as the legacy one. Now, let's go. And if you click now on new role, then you will be able just to create a new one. Let me just check if country is not existing here. No, it doesn't. All right, good. Now, let me click on this one, on new role. And now, let me just take this one. So, and instead of new name, I'm just typing in my name. So then it's easier to see. So as a business unit, we don't have created so many business units. And in this course, we will not really create and have some segmentation there. So we just take this one. Don't be confused by this name. You can change this business unit name to anything more meaningful. That's just the start of the training environment we have just created. So as a description, Let's just write something, a role to view countries only, and applies to visitors, something like this. So as a summary of the core table privileges, currently I just put in a dash, so nothing special. Good. Now I'm ready. So when a role is assigned to a team, which we today not doing, then obviously it can also inherit members' privileges. So let me save this one. And now I do have now created a new role, but this role has nothing configured. So now I'm now in my role in here. Now let me search now for my country. Here we go. Now what we have is the following. I just check mark so you can see it here. I do have a record ownership, user or team, because when I create a standard table, I can make a decision in the very first beginning if I want to make the record ownership to user and teams available, yes or no. If you say no in the very first beginning, then it's either everyone can see it or no one can see it. Now you have create right. I'm just either scrolling up, but I just make it everything a bit smaller. I can't make this one smaller. Then let me see how much I can do this smaller. Okay. I need to go there. So you do have 8 options: create, read, write, delete, append, append to, assign, share. That means here I can now say on that level how I want to give you the privileges. Remember with privileges? No? If you don't remember that again, let me just show that to you. So let me just go with this. Here we go. Privileges. What can I do? Access level, where I can do it. Yeah? So very important just to remember. So these are the privileges. I give on user level, you're the privilege. That means you can only create your own records. If I would do like this, I can give you only read options. I can give you only write options. So delete options. This is something which you need a little bit of practice to get familiar with that. That's not something you can manage within 2 minutes. It would be great. You can also ask Copilot as well, and what that kind of ideas is, how to set it up. Also, another one is to copy a so-called security role and make a copy of it and then modify it from there. So there's also one way of how we just did that. So what we want to do is we want to give the read access and select organization-wide. So it means that a person can at least read, not write anything, not create anything, so not creating any countries and all that kind of stuff, only read. Save. And I'm doing that the same for continent as well. Continent. Also give organization-wide read. Organization-wide read means that everywhere, regardless where you are in the business unit structure, you can read it. That's not really recommended to do this, but in that case, because country and continents are not really high sensitive information, we can do this one. So now I save this one here, and I can also at the same time close it. Here we go. Now if I scroll down, I do have now this one country viewer role created here. So now how can I use this one? How can I share this one? So either you share that with users, assign them, or you just share that with a team. So let me, or assign it to a team. Well, let me just show that how that works. So if you go to settings and to users, you see now a few of that users there. And for example, I want to share that with Alex. So what I can do now with Alex is I just go in here, and then I can manage the roles here. That's what I was searching for. And now look, my new created country viewer one, I could now assign that, save. And then it already gives you a warning. Only the following users will be able to access this one. And if you click save, then this person has this one. The good thing is, if you now go back here to security and security roles, and now search who has now this role by clicking on 3, and if you click on members, then you will see that how many people have been assigned to that role. It gives you some kind of control, but obviously this is something which we just don't want. Now, I want something else now. I just want, for example, share now this app. How can I share this app? So I just need to go to my Power Apps environment again, back to the Maker environment, go to apps, and should be not of a surprise that there is one app, which is a global data manager. And so everyone can use it, I need to share it. So if I click on the sharing option, you see now that I am the one who's been created, so that's why it's there. I also have the app name. But now if I'm just searching now for specific people like Bianca, here we go. If I click on that, then usually I should be able just to assign her that role. So currently I don't see it, but let me show that at least on the app side that this security role exists. So so where it is, it's really good hidden. Unfortunately, it's not sorted by alphabets. Here we go, here, country viewer. If I would select this one, I would now give the access it. It doesn't make sense to give the app the access, but if you have users, so Bianca was previously also an admin, that's why I don't see anything else there to option, but usually it should work if I just, here we go. There it is. I have just to manage it by the app. So here we go. Now I can give her this one and boom. Now there is a question. Have you meant visitors on the guest users in AD? I meant to ask, how is this applicable to multiple other users in Teams? Please assist. Yeah. So everyone who wants to use a model-driven app needs to have a license. So you can't just add visitors. So I just have called it now visitors. I just meant with visitors the users within the Active Directory in that case, or Entra ID. Yeah, we're not adding any kind of guest users. The guest users who's been added into Entra ID needs as well also a license. Otherwise, they can't access to Dataverse or they can't access to a model-driven app. If they do have the license, then it works. Then it's been applicable to them. Hopefully that helps. All right, good. That's more or less it in that case. So if I click on share, then this has been now shared with Bianca. And in that case, it will work. Now, that's more or less everything about security part. With security, usually this is really, I wouldn't say complex, but it's getting really into a level 200, maybe sometimes in some cases even to level 300, how you can build this up. So my recommendation is, if you're starting new, don't deal with the security so much. If you have a solution architect, let the solution architect do the main grounding work, but try to understand the concept behind security. It also took me for a long time till I understood how this all works. Yeah. So as long as this, wow, okay, it's been shared now with Bianca as well. That's great. All right. So in that case, let's jump to not the very last chapter, but one of the last chapters. And this is about Dataverse for Copilot. Now this has been interesting. I left the best for the end. So Dataverse is the backbone for so many things. So it's a native backend for Copilot Studio. Previously, I think over 1 year ago or 1.5 years ago, there was no Dataverse for Copilot Studio there. So not included in the license. So now it's included there. And that's really, really important because you just want not only to build the agents, you just only want to import the agents into some kind of production environments. So that was by the way, a pain with Power Pages for such a long time that something like an LLM mechanism doesn't exist there for a very long time. Still doesn't exist in a classic way. You still can't put a Power Page into a solution and then transport that from a dev environment to a test or product environment. With Copilot Studio and the agent, it works. You still encounter the one other issue there, but I think we're still in the early agentic age. That's why it's not such a problem. And I think it will become better and better with every cycle. So, and Dataverse also acts everyone calls it as a USB port for AI context. But what I can say is the Model Context Protocol is one of the most important things Microsoft has introduced in the last months. Even if it doesn't really an interesting topic, at least not for me, it is a crucial topic because the MCP server, there's also a Dataverse MCP server, helps you very much, in contrary to the old-fashioned Power Platform connectors, how the information's been understood. So why? The old Power Platform connectors, I'm saying old, it's not old, but these are not really made for AI. They help you to connect to Dataverse, but to get the information right away in a right, understandable way, you need to use MCP servers for that. Because the MCP service gives you a lot of options how to deal from an AI perspective. And that makes any kind of searching information and hoping that AI would deliver you the right information much better. By the way, there is no MCP server for SharePoint. And if you're just using the standard connector in Copilot Studio with SharePoint, you're getting results which are okayish now, but still, for me, far away from where I said, this is exactly where we are. You know, with every cycle, with every event Microsoft is doing, it's getting better. So Microsoft Build, Microsoft Ignite, we're seeing how the results in SharePoint is getting better and better. But we're still not there where we want to be. And the reason the old-fashioned connectors don't have this kind of semantic search built in. What is semantic search? Semantic search is something where, for example, I'm just typing in a keyword, Apple. And if I'm typing in Apple, it just only looks letter by letter for this one word in the document, and that's it. It means, but Apple can also means, you know, the apple on the tree. It can mean the company Apple. It can also mean Apple Music. It can also, not the Apple Music from the company Apple, but there was previously from the Beatles, the company was also called Apple, for example, previously, and other wordings. And based on that, this is very, very important that this semantic understanding has been built in, but not in the connectors. But in MCP, it is. And previously, the large language models, the brains behind all that AI stuff, didn't have that as well. For example, there's OpenAI models, which for a long time didn't have this built in, but I think they're also coming. But the Anthropic models, for example, have this semantic searching built in. That's why everyone's saying if I'm using Claude, my results are much better. We're defining much better. What is the KPI for defining much better? You know, that's always hard to do. But we are still in the very beginning of all this. And what we want is that the agent is just deliver us perfect information. And that perfect information has been delivered by a structured database, which is Dataverse in connection with a Dataverse MCP server. Dataverse is also your backbone for the long-term memory and shared state. That means it just remembers what you just have discussed for a long time because it just stores that information in tables. Yes, it stores that. That's a memory effect. It stores that information and always looks what you have just discussed previously. And based on that, it has this long-term memory then there. And then there's also a native agentic logic. This has been, I'm very honest with you, this is an article about the new reimagined Dataverse search, which I haven't seen. It's some kind of been dropped in December 8, as you can see. I just have opened this one up. But around December, I started to be on vacation mode already after a very, very hard year. That's why I haven't seen that. But now there is that Dataverse search, which has been reinvented. As a very, very cool article. I really recommend you to read this one. When I was just preparing for this course, I just have saw this article and just built it in. So you see that Dataverse is becoming a Microsoft strategy more and more a crucial part of this agentic world. Now coming to the final lab, starting with lab 8 is here. So let me just go in here and do this one. Dataverse with Copilot, knowledge, and grounding. So I just want to show you why grounding matters, because grounding is crucial for the success of the information, the high quality you're just getting out, you know? So it's a source of truth, more or less. And your agent is less hallucinating. I would not say won't hallucinating, but less hallucinating. And especially if you're just pointing out to the source of truth, you just reduce this kind of things dramatically. Now, let us connect Dataverse to Copilot Studio. How do we do this? So let me just close every unnecessary window here first. So we don't need this one. We're here. If I go in here and you start Copilot Studio, you have your training environment, it's everything arranged. So it asks you in the beginning, do I connect you with your country? So I just have connected to North America. As I said, North America, very important because, let me see, Adele. Here we go. Because North America has the latest features. And if you want to learn with Copilot, I always recommend to start with the latest features. So now let me just go in and create a new agent. I'm not doing that by typing in anything else new than there. I just want to do it from the ground in here. So create a blank new agent. Here we go. And let's call this agent global geography expert. So let me just go in. In the very first beginning, if you can't do this, the feature is not available because it hasn't been set up. So we just need to wait a little bit. So I just do the naming then once it's been ready. So once it's been green. So what you can see here now is some kind of features. It's been there. That's great. So let me just rename this one. Here we go. Save this one. So my primary one is GTP41, but this one is with no semantic. So I would really choose one which I think. So the 5 one is not bad, There's also 5.2, which people say is much better, but that was dropped somewhere in end November, beginning December. I haven't really tried this out. In Claude, Sonnet, and Opus, I just need to disable that one, enable this one, so then this can be used as well. There's great news, by the way, for all the Anthropic models by Microsoft. So there was really a security issue so far, but that security issue isn't existing anymore. So usually when you have used one of these models, it has communicated to their own private Anthropic servers, which might be a no-go. You know, you don't want that maybe your information landing in the US, for example, if you're living in Europe. Now they are not sending that anymore. So there is an agreement between Microsoft and Anthropic that this has been resolved, and we can recommend that now without having a problem with that. So on a knowledge base now, we want just to add this one. Now let's go, and then there's something which is called Dataverse. Let's click on this. And if I'm now clicking on country, on continent, let's do both. Country. Here we go. And then add to agent. Your first agent. Sandra. It will not be your last. All right. Good. Now you have country and continent there. So if you go in there, you see a lot of things you can still change here. So you have some include an Excel option that's really new. That's even new to me. That's really cool. You have the preview. Then in preview you see, for example, for continent or for country information in that case. It's really interesting that it doesn't show the tables we just have created for that. But anyhow, you can put in synonyms for that. So for example, to make it a little bit more smarter, you see all the continent stuff and all the country stuff here. And for example, description can also something else. But anyhow, I don't want to add now. So you can just add some synonyms and make it better. For example, just as an example, a man can also be male. It can also be a boy. It can also be a guy and something. Same as well for women, and same as well for other. There's not other genders, but other information where I put in some synonyms and make it then with that agent a little bit easier. Should not be when we entering the full-fledged semantic world. That should not really be something we should do and add manually anymore. So now, and we do have also a glossary, which you can also build in as well to enhance agent understanding and responses with this. So now what we want to do is we want now to optimize our search. Let's go back to the portal and the maker portal, and then we go to our country table. Nope, that's not where I wanted. I want to go to solutions. Here we go. And you see now, right? Because I just have created now my agents, and I just said, that's my preferred solution. It automatically adds me these things now here. And even this UX agent project file, that's one which I just created with that generative pages, it automatically put me here as well. Very interesting. So let me just go and search now for my table and click on country. And now on country, now let's go to the views. On views, there's this quick find. We just talked about that 1.5 hours before. Now we are adding not only the country name, but also the other columns as well. So let me just put in all that information, description and population here. So we see we don't need to create it on. And now I can just edit this one. And we're currently searching now for the country name, but also for the population and also for the continent and for the description. Here we go. So now, if you're just typing something in, maybe in the description and so on, then you can just, it should now work now. We need to save and publish this one again. Okay. And once it's done, we go now back to the Copilot Studio agent, and let's see how good this works. So it might be that this is not working immediately. It needs some time, but let's see. I'm just now back to my agent. Let me just refresh this one. And let me just type in what's the population. Let me just put in here in country. Here we go. We do have Germany. Okay, great. So what is the population of Germany according to my data? Okay. You see, according to your data, the current population is there. And it's also pointing me now only to the country table, not directly to the specific one. But just open this one up and then you have Germany here. Let me just ask another question. So, what is the summary of countries located in Europe? And by the way, don't worry that it takes so long because it's super slow. So it's a trial version, that's why. So 3 countries, is that correct? Let's have a check. Yeah, Italy, France, and Europe. We don't have more. So it's also correct. I very funny. I haven't asked, the agent about this one, but it's noted as very snowy. Didn't put any kind of information in there? No, I don't think that France and Italy has any kind of information. And that's also a problem with, yeah, that's why. That's also a problem with Copilot. Copilot is very chatty, If you need a friend to chat the whole night, Copilot is your best friend. Unfortunately, Copilot also tells you things that maybe doesn't hurt. It's some kind of these like, have you heard? And just spread the rumor. We know it as hallucination. So very chatty. Also some kind of security risk. Limit down information to an agent by knowledge. Only the Copilot shall know, because it really drags you out everything on information. So and which country is described being special of history? Let me see what we'll get out here. Yeah. Well, we haven't really put in some kind of special. It doesn't know also much more. So you need to put in a little bit more words. It's also, we didn't have configured that with MCP server as well. But there's also no wording of special and so on. That's why it's currently lost. And that's why you don't get any kind of information in there. Good. But you see, this is a little bit of a Copilot stuff and experience we just have. You can also use, prompt actions with Dataverse, which is also working quite fine. And Dataverse is a structured database. And now we're coming to the last chapter of the experience. And the last chapter of the experience is the internal battle, Dataverse versus SharePoint. So that's not really SharePoint bashing what I'm just doing, that's really the reality which I just have encountered in the one migration project I just had with SharePoint. SharePoint is cheaper, but the question is, really? So if you just look at the numbers, and let's look at the last line, the storage space, you get with a SharePoint in general, not only SharePoint list, SharePoint, 1 terabyte per tenant and 10 gigabyte per user license. That's huge. You can do a lot. If you compare this with Dataverse, you're just getting 20 gigabyte of database for every user. That means if you have a big company and let's say 1,000 people or more, then they have just to share that 20 gigabyte database and 20 gigabyte of file base. And everyone still needs, a database, a license, a premium license for that. So what I mean by this is, if you compare the true nature of prices, SharePoint is the winner. No doubt about that. And SharePoint is also included in majority of the Microsoft 365 license packages. So SharePoint is built in. So that's why you don't really pay for your SharePoint. It's already been paid. So that's why people say, here we go, we're using SharePoint for the agentic world. But the problem is, SharePoint is not really made for the agentic point. So let's have this one, AI or Copilot. You don't get in SharePoint a basic AI assistance for data entry. You see the SharePoint chat then there for Copilot and there, and etc. And some might say, hey, the M65 SharePoint works quite well. Well, in M65 Copilot, SharePoint really works well, but the grounding happens because of the tenant graph, MS Graph grounding, MS Graph tenant grounding. That's the right word. And based on that, that's really, really good on getting the examples because the MS Graph is doing the real work, the groundwork for you. That's why results from SharePoint are looking much better as in Copilot Studio. In Copilot Studio, you're using the standard connector, and the standard connector has no semantic. That means you can't really get good results of that. And that's why you have two crucial differences in the results. It's getting better, but still we are not there where we want to be. With the Dataverse, we are much, much further with that. Even I have also seen some experiments where it didn't work, but we haven't used the MCP server for that. If you're using MCP server, we're also getting much better results in Dataverse as well. So, and as I said, there is no native out-of-the-box Microsoft MCP server for SharePoint. If you Google it, you will find some MCP servers for SharePoint. But in that case, you can also, throw out your money out the window. That's the same effect, because you never know who's behind that GitHub account. If that is a friendly community developer who just want to share this server with you, or is that something? Be very, very careful. Use MCP servers out of Copilot Studio natively. That's my advice to you. Or you just develop something you really know about and then run it on your own server, but never take something from the internet and hope everything will be good, because all your data will run about that server. And if this server is corrupted, people can grab out the information, and that can be really, really ending bad. So from a security point of view. SharePoint has also some other kind of negative effects. I just found out in the migration project. For example, a query threshold, 5,000 items in the SharePoint list, and that's it. If you have 5,001 items, it doesn't show you anything anymore. If you want to access with a Power App, it doesn't show you any anymore. It just throws you an error. It says, I'm sorry, it doesn't work. There is no query limit in Dataverse. It's optimized for millions of records. Well, and also the lookup limit. something which is super annoying me. People build a SharePoint list, which is a flat list, and built in other SharePoint lists to make a relational database out of it. I have now a table with, I would say, 30, 25, 36, 30 such kind of lookups, and my view in SharePoint stopped. It doesn't show me anymore. It says more as 12 of that lookups are per single view. Boom, I'm stopping here. I'm not working. You don't have that kind of limitation on SharePoint on Dataverse. It's only limited by the total column account, so maximum 1,000. That's it. So, and you also have, from a capacity, you can have up to 30 million items per list. I've never tried that out. So theoretically, it's unlimited for Dataverse. And you do have a better, deeper granularity with security in Dataverse as with SharePoint. But I'm not SharePoint experienced enough to give you that kind of, that's like this. I believe that SharePoint experts can really get out from a security perspective much more out of that. But at the end result, if you just look at this list here, you will find out you will have to manage SharePoint lists much, much more. The maintenance much more. You're limited more. It's not really compared to Dataverse, made for AI. You will have much more limitations with SharePoint in a marathon. So in a sprint, SharePoint is cheaper and is faster, but at the end result, with Dataverse is better. Dataverse has other limitations. Dataverse, for example, is you need to have a dedicated Dataverse license for everyone. So, for example, with Power Apps Premium, so everyone can use Dataverse. If you don't have this, then and that increases the cost. So, in a company with 10,000 people or even 1,000 people, that is costly. And Microsoft also have just removed the Power Apps for Plan license for that just only cost you $5 instead of the $20 for Power Apps Premium from the licensing program. So it's not available anymore. So at the end, if it's only around the cost, SharePoint is always cheaper. But if you want to have the full agentic thing, then obviously you will be happier with Dataverse. But these are the pros and cons you always have just to consider. If it's that people want to upload lots of documents, then Dataverse is not the right place, obviously, to do. Then SharePoint might be better. But people expecting I'm uploading something in SharePoint, I'm expecting it just gives me the exact citation and point me to this. Maybe it will work when Microsoft brings out an out-of-the-box MCP server for SharePoint, maybe. But let's see. But I have my believing in that these large language models becoming better and more semantic, then these things hopefully will be better. So give it a try with Claude and Copilot Studio. I think the results are good, partly very good. Good. There's also a chapter for this. If you want to try this chapter out, be my guest. We hadn't really the time for do this, but then you do have this list again, why Dataverse is a better choice. We're at the end, more or less. Let's start an open discussion. So is there any questions in the chat which I have missed or somewhere else? Just looking at the M65 conference moderators here, to Mirko and also to Marcel.
Hey, no, you was perfect. No questions. I think, yeah, this was an awesome session. I've learned a lot. And what I think, or I hope, when I use Dataverse, it's not so slowly on bigger data sites like SharePoint.
Yeah, SharePoint has his advantages and disadvantages. Obviously, I learned a lot in that migration project now. SharePoint is nice, let's say it like this. So, but I would say you will, for the agentic way, I will always choose Dataverse. Dataverse is not perfect and sometimes also not fast, but it's better scalable. And from a security perspective, I always would choose Dataverse.
And
Yeah.
how does it compare to Microsoft Fabric? Or does it work together?
You mean Dataverse?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
Regarding to SharePoint, I'm the SharePoint guy, and yeah, and I see the same topics like you, but it's an interesting calculation, I think. So, for example, if you have an app with not so much data, I think SharePoint could be a good solution. And but the special one, I think, is you need a high secure app with more than 5,000 data
Item.
I would say data sets or data item, and when you need to calculate as a company. So I think it's ever been an pricing problem for the companies that say, now I need to invest, and this is ever been a pain point with all of my customers. He said, no, good, you need to find a solution. But so we have, for example, 10 or 20 licenses for Dynamics, and 20 for this special team here where I need premium licensing, but we need another solution for that if all of the people in the company comes in the game. What do you see your customers?
Yeah, it's the same. So if you want to roll out, and we have in Evanate also the same situation as well. So I was previously in learning, and I just had started creating Canvas apps based on Dataverse because it's better manageable, and also from a security perspective, and also I don't want, like in a SharePoint list, that because we had more or less global rights, everyone could look in every SharePoint list, and I don't want to have some information being displayed in there. And with Dataverse, I could restrict that very easy. Unfortunately, I had one of the very few licenses, so I could use it everywhere and saw it everywhere, but no one else in the company could use it. And if you want to roll it out to 10,000 people, wow, that could be very costly. That's why, from a cost perspective, I understand this one. I think Microsoft made it smart to make Canvas apps available to any data source except Dataverse. But with model-driven apps and also Power Pages, you're just limited. So I'm not sure if Canvas apps would have been so successful in modern work if they would have also been limited to Dataverse. But as I said, it's not only the cost things. It's not every time also everything is green with Dataverse. So there's also some problems with Dataverse as well, to be very honest. But every technology has its advantages and disadvantages, to be very honest.
The biggest disadvantage are the pricing. I think it's 46 or $42 per gigabyte. But now, as I saw and posting that so now you have a doubled gigabyte now in the licensing. This was really cool, I think. But it's one of the not the highest pricing I know, but it's a really high pricing for a gigabyte storage, I think.
Yeah, that's true. So there is a question. So earlier with evaluating the Copilot Studio along with ServiceNow, connected for operation, that difficulties in configuring the Active Directory authentication part for the end users to communicate and to build the agent. Yeah. This is also something which is not easy to do. If you want to connect your agent, and in that case, it communicates with outside of the platform of the Microsoft ecosystem, and then you need to ensure that not another, mean agent just comes and then, build out your credits, or you misuse your credits which you have for your agents. That's why you have authentication in that case. But it's not easy to do. So you need to configure everything correctly in Azure, and you also need to ensure that that's a human being and so on. I know these steps, it's super annoying, and we're still not there where I say it's super user-friendly. Plus the governance part of that. You need to configure the governance part so it's also working, so the channels are opened as well. So that can also be a problem. So it's still like, I feel like in the 18th century, where the people the first time came to America and tried to dig for gold because they heard, hey, there's gold somewhere, we need to find it. But the United States is so big and you didn't know where to start. That's some kind of how I feel with that agentic place as well. We're searching and searching, but I think we're improving fast, and also that ServiceNow thing, it's getting better. Let's see how we will improve the authentication things as well. So there's another question. Could you please assist if we have some simple working solutions? So let me just drag this screen here. Then everyone can see it, right? So let me just sit on my little quick. All right. Can you please assist where we have some simple working solutions for such issues? It would be really grateful for such you could share your expertise on this. And any way of reaching you directly in case. So any case of reaching, that's pretty simple. Just reach me on LinkedIn. That's the easiest way just to do. So what is that? What you mean? What any assistance? So you mean with how you can authenticate? Is that what you mean? Any experiences there? So in any case, you mean that with authentication. So this is something which becomes a bit easier, especially in the Microsoft ecosystem, because previously with Copilot Studio, you couldn't, you could only connect data Power Apps and Microsoft related things, but now you can also configure, don't need to configure SharePoint anymore. SharePoint was always a pain to configure with authentication. That's also now built in as well. So I think the things are getting better and simpler. One thing also is I recommend, I haven't just posted, I have linked that what you can see in the QR code is also the Copilot Studio newsletter, where I'm just putting in a lot of that important information from the community week by week. And then you can also learn from there as well, address and find also other Copilot Studio related experts as well you can connect with as well. But you can reach me on LinkedIn for any kind of discussions. All right. Then thank you very much for everyone on YouTube, on LinkedIn, or also here in the StreamYard. And I would say back to you guys.
So, yeah, have a nice evening, guys. And we see us tomorrow with the product owner of Logic Apps, Kent Ware from Microsoft, and we go deeper to MCP servers and Copilot Studio. I think, Bülent, your topic. And yeah, so I'm really happy. He will join us on Tuesday and on Friday too. Yeah, stay tuned, and we see us tomorrow.
Have a nice evening, guys. See you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Is your Microsoft 365 knowledge stuck in neutral? Apparently, the community is buzzing with numerous exciting new ideas every single day creatively. At M365ComNet, we've got the vibrant energy of a dynamic conference, distilled daily into insightful doses of innovation and practical forward-thinking strategies for tech. Imagine having experts and creators sharing their unique perspectives daily. That's exactly what we're carefully bringing to the table for you, with thoughtful insights. Our daily live stream was a huge hit, but we knew we could make it even better with some exciting changes. That's why we're launching something entirely new today now. From the team behind M365 ConNet and M365 Bot Show comes a podcast that's all about real conversations and real impact. M365.fm is the new innovative podcast that puts comprehensive Microsoft 365 expertise at your fingertips conveniently, wherever you go daily, offering actionable insights and expertise. You'll get expert insights, real-world stories, and deep dives into productivity, security, and more. Our podcast is built for the makers, admins, builders, and thinkers who shape the Microsoft 365 world. Expect the best of our daily episodes, reimagined into a perfect format that's ideal for on-the-go listening, with enhanced audio quality and engaging narratives always. Whether you're commuting daily, working out, or just need a mental break, M365.fm is the perfect companion for staying productive and organized on the go, every single day, always. If you loved our daily episodes, you'll love M365.fm even more. It's the same great content, just more accessible. Subscribe now to M365.fm today and keep the conversation going. One engaging episode at a time, head over to M365.fm for more exclusive content and discussions regularly, always.